Campaign concerns in the Hoosier State?
Bill Tilford joins us to discuss the Indiana primaries today on The Undercurrent. What? Hello.
How you doing, Uncle Warren?
I'll make sure we don't have our have the clownfish school thing like we had last time.
That was great.
Talking about a dead guy with clownfish school underneath it. Not a good look. Just saying.
Saying.
Good morning, everybody. It's May 13th here. It's 51 degrees here in Chicago. Nice, lovely day. We had a lovely day yesterday too. So, but this weather, I mean, end of May, is that normal to have like 40s, 50s like that in Chicago? Probably, right?
It really does depend. I mean, Chicago's one of those places where it changes by the hour.
Yeah. I just don't remember last year or the year before it still staying chilly like that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I used to hate winter, but now it's like I could, the fact that you can put on more layers and get warm. Whereas in the hot summertime that, you start taking off layers, that's when the police show up. That's and Daddy don't have bail money.
Bad dog, Uncle Warren.
It's that's some bad news there. And I don't have bail money. So so it's kind of nice. So how's it down south?
It's been pleasant. It's actually been pleasant. The weather's been pretty temperate. You have a little bit of rain and stuff like that, but it's been pretty temperate down here. It's not gotten too bad yet. We'll see what happens in the summertime. And it gets damp down here. I'll tell you that. I'm constantly at war with dampness down here, but it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, there ain't nothing mid about that humidity down there. It is like all or nothing.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Is Don on the phone, Chuck? That's what I want. Where are those pictures I'm supposed to see? That's an inside joke. So have you ever heard the Casey Kasem cursing audio?
Yeah, I have. Do you remember listening to that every Sunday?
What, him cursing?
No, the show. You know what I'm talking about. The countdown.
Yeah, I used to play it on weekends when I was down right before he stopped, actually. Yeah. And then it turned into I guess I can't remember who else took over for him, but I didn't really care after that. But any radio person worth their headphones knows about the Casey Kasem rant and the cursing and delicious. All right. Well, we got a lot of stuff to get to because we've got Bill coming up here pretty soon, but let's get to the Riptide. Well, let's say hi to everybody. We got Chuck and CBC voter in the house. Good to see you. And I just want to tell people that we also have added to our mutual aid list. We have Yoninah, our friend of the show. She's trying to get to Chicago with her disabled cat, and it's kind of a struggle. She's in a pinch, so she's trying to raise money with her GoFundMe. The links for that are down below in the description. If you could help her out or at least share out the links, we sure do appreciate that. So
Yoninah's a sweetheart. She also is very supportive of a lot of people, creators in this space, independent media. She participates, she supports, she boosts. She encourages, and if you can find some few bucks to send her right now, she has a place to stay. She has to get out of her home. She has a place to stay in Chicago, but unfortunately, the person she has to stay with is allergic to cats, so she needs to find a pet hotel or some arrangement for her cat while she finds a permanent place to live. And frankly, having gone through this last year, any kind of a long distance move is so incredibly expensive. It just is. So anything we can do to help her out, we would really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yes, please. Thank you. Please and thank you in advance. So let's get to the headlines today. Well, we can get this button there going. So the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is restructuring. Their restructuring accelerates lease termination and litigation attorney hiring amid proposed Deep staff cuts, because of course,
things
that help people got to cut that staff. Recent reporting from the ABA Banking Journal and the American Banker describes a rapidly evolving restructuring of the CFPB under the Trump administration, with significant implications for the agency's future role and for regulated entities, according to documents obtained by Reuters through a Freedom of Information Act request. That would be FOIA to you and me, of the comptroller of the currency, the OCC. Yeah, you know me. Terminated the CFPB's lease for its Washington, D.C. headquarters back in February, approximately 6 years early, and transferred the property to the General Services Administration at no cost. This move aligns with public statements by Trump and Office of Management and Budget Director, acting CFPB Director Russell Vought. Funny, Vought Industries from The Boys comes to mind when I hear that name. So, which is kind of appropriate for the Trump administration. Both of whom have expressed a desire to substantially shrink or even close the Bureau, which was created by Congress in 2010 under the Dodd-Frank Act after the 2008 financial crisis. The lease termination does not itself dissolve the CFPB, but it is a concrete step that reduces the Bureau's physical footprint and underscores the administration's broader effort to limit the Bureau's size and visibility. So proposed workforce cuts remain under court review. The American Banker reports that the administration is simultaneously pursuing aggressive workforce reductions in filings with the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit. Government lawyers have proposed a reduction in force, RIF, which when we were kids, that used to mean reading is fundamental.
I remember that riff, yeah.
I'm pulling that out of the archives. That would cut the CFPB staff by more than half, from roughly 1,100 employees to about 550. When Trump's second term began, the Bureau reportedly had more than 1,750 employees. The National Treasury Employees Union has challenged the RIF plan, and a court-ordered stay currently prevents the CFPB from implementing large-scale terminations. The administration has withdrawn an earlier proposal that could have eliminated up to 90% of staff. It is now seeking approval for a narrower cut. There's more here too, but we're kind of pressed for time, so I want to just get to the nuts and bolts of that. You can read the whole version of these stories on our Substack, and the link is down below on the crawl there. If you can see it there, it's crawling. It's crawling like me after a Saturday night. I'm just saying, sometimes I can't stay upright. But the CFPB, so it had more funding under Biden, but did it have more teeth?
Yes, it did. Yes, it absolutely did. And that was something that I was tracking back when I was doing Civically Minded over at Hard Lens. And basically it had got defanged under the first Trump administration. And it was dealing things like it was going after credit fix companies. And as I said, that's not just low-hanging fruit. That's the fruit that's fallen off the trees and that the animals are eating and getting drunk off of because they've fermented.
Not just animals. I'm just saying.
Well, no judgment here.
I like a little sip every once in a while, but please go ahead. I'm
sorry. But what did happen? But yes, under Biden, it got its teeth back, and it was there was actually going after predatory loan companies. And that sort of thing. And it did give consumers an extra layer of protection, particularly at the federal level, because a lot of state agencies are underfunded. And so what we've seen is we've seen a reverse here. And they really want to crawl that back. It is worrying. It is worrying.
Yeah, it's, it really had a hard time out of the gate when it first got, it was under Obama, right? That
Elizabeth Warren was the one who wanted it, and yeah.
It just seems like this is just one of many programs like that are getting gutted and defanged, as you say, under Trump, and it's just very frustrating that people haven't woken up to this, right? That they haven't seen that the things that actually are good in government to a certain extent are just being, 86th, right? And here we are just, but, almost $2.5 trillion for war. That's coming. And I'm pretty sure that'll get passed too. So.
This is an unusual time for consumers in the U.S. We've got all of these financial tech companies out there. We've got all kinds of AI services. Things can get tapped into people's bank accounts, subscription services. People don't own things anymore. It's a very troubling time, very confusing time for a lot of consumers. Having a regulatory agency that's staying on top of that would be important right now. But I guess that's not a priority.
I guess not. Bum, 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 bum. That seems to be the priority. And this goes into talking about mom and pop shops too, as another thing that's withering on the vine, as it were. So I'm trying to stay alive. Jobs at mom and pop shops are disappearing. Shirley Maudlin started her manufacturing business 20 years ago in her garage with her husband. Now she fears the company won't survive. Her tiny company based in Powhatan, Virginia, faces major delays on components and price hikes of up to 400% that she blames on tariffs. We'll get to more of that coming up. She's struggling to pass those costs on to clients and has fallen 90 days behind on payments to vendors. Everything is delayed or high price. The customer is screaming. It's killing us. Maudlin, owner of 3D Design and Manufacturing, told CNN, mom and pop shops are under increasing pressure from a confluence of factors: tariffs, high interest rates, expensive health insurance, and now surging energy costs. Small businesses with fewer than 10 employees have cut jobs 13 months in a row, according to a new analysis by the Democratic staff at the U.S. Congress Joint Economic Committee. It was first shared with CNN. That's a big change from the spike in small business optimism that accompanied Trump's 2024 victory. Oh, wait, he lied about that? Wow, I'm shocked, I say with no exclamation marks. Maudlin already had to forego raises for her workers this year. Now she's being forced to contemplate what was once unthinkable, whether to sell the business or lay off any of her highly skilled machinists. I'm trying to stay alive. I can't sleep at night, she said. Trevor Frampton owns a feed and pet supply store in Santa Rosa, California with his wife. They have been unable to pass costs on to cash-strapped consumers because he fears they will turn to larger rivals or e-commerce options instead. Now Frampton is considering letting employees go for the first time in a decade. There's something so wrong with this economy right now. My customers are buying less and they are buying down. The only option left is reduction in force, and that just makes my stomach turn. Employment at mom and pop shops tumbled by 292,200 jobs last year alone, according to the U.S. Congress Joint Economic Committee's analysis based on the Intuit QuickBooks Small Business Index. That's the most since tracking began a decade ago. By comparison, mom and pop shops lost 87,800 jobs in 2024. That's over 200,000 more jobs in a single year, more than next year. In fact, the smallest businesses cut 4 times more jobs last year than in 2020 during the pandemic, according to the data. The data is based on a sample of small businesses that use QuickBooks to manage payroll and invoices. However, a different metric from ADP that tracks slightly larger businesses, those employing between 1 and 19 people, finds an increase of 526,000 jobs last year. ADP said these small businesses have added 236,000 jobs so far this year, including 43,000 jobs in April. All right. Well, yeah, and I've seen it here in Chicago and New York. I'm probably sure you've seen it too. A lot of these really small shops closing, especially like in these strip malls and in malls in general too. It's really weird to see that the numbers are bigger for these businesses that are slightly bigger. What do you? I don't understand why that is.
It could be affordability of the tracker, because ADP and Intuit, I think that they offer similar services, but to different groups of people, and maybe their price points. So that could be that where they're looking at different types, companies that have more capital. And that could be the case. That's why we're seeing that discrepancy there. But it is a real concern seeing what happens to these smaller businesses that cannot absorb even the temporary increases. If we're going to accept, and I'm not sure that this is entirely the case, but if we are going to accept that the cost of tariffs, food, energy, what all that is a temporary situation, a larger business can more often more readily absorb that.
Right.
That's not going to happen with the small businesses. Also, the small businesses usually are not in a position to get a whole lot of visas for international workers coming in who are willing to work for less. They don't have an HR department. They don't have that kind of a structure that would allow for something like that. And one of my other concerns, and again, you point out this is the lifeblood of a community. When you have particularly smaller communities, or even places like Chicago that are very neighborhood based, when you lose a business or two, that can have a domino effect on that entire community, and it can become what they call a bedroom community, where people just go there to sleep. They don't interact. They're not in the streets, and that hurts civic engagement. The other thing that I would also say is that these small businesses, tiny businesses, are often in a position to give people their first leg up into employment. The friend of a friend, they have a kid, maybe the kid's had some issues, or they have a friend who maybe was incarcerated, and they're in a position sometimes to give these folks a chance where a bigger company may have HR policies that won't allow for that. When that goes down in community, when people are not able to get that first job or to re-enter employment, that has a very negative effect on communities.
Yeah. And you also have to figure in real estate too, because a lot of times a lot of these smaller businesses are leasing from people that, so they're at the will of lease hikes and stuff like that, and it's not necessarily an evil thing by the landlord. Maybe the landlord
has the same problem.
The landlord has the same problem too, because they have costs that rise as well. So they end up passing it down to the business, and then the business tries to pass it down to the customer. But in like a couple of those cases there, they said they didn't feel like that they could do that because it was just going to run them off to like bigger, like your your bigger places that have large stock and stuff like that can absorb these hits, like you were talking about.
And when the business loses their lease or has to break the lease, they can't afford it. Now the landlord is scrambling because they have to weatherize and secure that place, and that's an issue. And you have a domino effect that goes the other direction to the landlord, who's now going to be in a real pickle. And again, empty buildings like that, they lead to blight.
Yeah.
And again, it pulls property values down, because property values are assessed in part on the value of other buildings and structures.
Right.
So the whole neighborhood, there goes the neighborhood, as they say.
Yeah, because it's not just the building. If you've got a building, it's almost like in one of these HOA communities too for housing. It's like they always tell you, oh, well, you can only have this, you can't have that, because then you're going to drive our property values down, that kind of thing. So it's, that I don't like the way that works, but that is the way it is right now. So let's check in with Chuck up in space and his friends, Starlink up there. New Starlink policy requires passport check live portrait for international use. Let's get all your data right off the bat. So if you use Starlink outside your home country, you may be required to provide your passport details or risk having SpaceX suspend your service. Didn't see this coming. Anyway, what happened? Starlink.com has been updated to mention a new travel registration policy that appears to apply to all customers using satellite internet service internationally. Travel registration is required for all Starlink use outside of the country or territory where you initially registered your account, your registered home country or territory. The company wrote On the support page, which PC Mag noticed today, that would be PC Magazine. I guess they're PC Mag now. Ooh, fancy. It adds failure to complete registration for international travel will result in service being disabled when abroad. So it's not might, it's will. It will. They will cut it off. The support page includes instructions on how customers can complete the registration within their accounts. It requires the user to submit their full legal name, nationality, date of birth, passport number, a copy of their passport, and a live portrait. If your service is disabled due to incomplete travel registration, you can complete registration to reactivate, the company said. So there's all the stuff right there. A lot of information that they really need. This comes after we spotted Starlink, several Starlink subscribers posting about receiving a red banner pop-up asking for passport details and live portrait verification, which involves using the Starlink app to snap a selfie. The registration needs to be completed in 25 days or the Starlink service will be deactivated. The pop-up said, since last year, SpaceX has required customer verification in some markets, including countries in Africa, citing local regulations. But lately, the company's pop-up has been appearing for customers and travelers who say they're based in the U.S. and Canada, too. So still, one customer in a Starlink Australia Facebook group reports being confused by the pop-up since they've been with Starlink for over 4 years. Another user in Canada who reported receiving the pop-up says they've never traveled outside the country. Found out the reason I need to verify is because I have the Starlink Mini and can travel with it. So you don't necessarily have to be outside the country. It's having this portable device. The user wrote after contacting Starlink customer support. The Mini portable Starlink dish works with the Roam plan, which supports international travel. So this sounds a lot like Discord, or what Discord tried to do. You remember, like not too long ago, Discord tried to do this too. We were going to get your facial recognition and all this stuff in order to use Discord, and people were like, they used a lot of colorful language in response, if you know what I'm saying. So I'm pretty sure they're going to do the same thing here, but this may be a different beast. What do you think?
Well, I found this story, I think it was last night. I was just on YouTube, just scrolling around some accounts, and I saw a video about this going on, that this has been affecting RV users, people who go around in their drive around their RVs. And a lot of people are just incredibly uncomfortable with this.
Yeah.
They're just incredibly uncomfortable. And I don't blame them.
Yeah. It just seems like an overt attempt to get people's data.
Yeah, to get their data and to get updated data. So if a person ages or they lose weight or they gain weight or they get facial hair, or they change their hairstyle, they get glasses, all these things, they've got all this data now so that it's a lot easier to identify people facially in other ways.
Yeah, it's and the fact that the people in their own home countries, like for the person in the US, and like you said, the RV owners who are just like, wait a minute, why am I getting this? I'm not outside my home country. It just seems like an overt grab at data and not some sort of for your safety.
And it's intimidation. It's saying, you got 25 days to comply or else or else.
Yeah, or
that's
else
intimidation.
You don't get your Starlink, right? That's how they do it. It's like, oh, you want this? Oh, you got to give us. Yeah. So how bad do you want it? Is how that works. That's something we're gonna have to keep an eye on too. I'm curious to see how many people push back on this and actually if the Musk and Starlink actually do something about that. We'll see. We travel to the great state of California now, and guess what? We have a mayor there who's working for China. China. This sounds like a setup. This sounds like a TV show or something.
I know. This is like I'm looking at this like this cannot be real.
Arcadia mayor resigns to plead guilty to working as an agent for China. The mayor of Arcadia, California, Eileen Wang, abruptly resigned Monday as federal prosecutors announced she had been charged with acting as a covert foreign agent for China. Wang has agreed to plead guilty to a single felony count that carries a statutory maximum sentence of 10 years in federal prison, according to the Department of Justice. Her plea agreement according to her plea agreement, Wang and an associate, Yoninah Mike's son, worked on behalf of the People's Republic of China to promote the PRC's interests through propaganda efforts. Among their platforms was the U.S. News Center, which purported to be a news source for Southern California's Chinese American community, according to the Department of Justice. In one example from June 2021, prosecutors said PRC officials contacted Wang through encrypted WeChat messages to deliver pre-written news articles. One PRC drafted essay published in the LA Times stated, "There is no genocide in Xinjiang. There is no such thing as forced labor in any production activity, including cotton production. Spreading such rumor to defame China, destroy Xinjiang's safety and stability, weaken local economies, suppress China's development." Minutes later, Wang posted the article on her own website and responded to the PRC official with a link, as did others in the group chat. According to the DOJ, a short time later, the PRC official replied, "So fast, thank you, everyone. The Chinese government has been accused of carrying out genocide against ethnic minorities, predominantly Muslims, in the Xinjiang region and of imposing forced labor." In August 2021, federal prosecutors said Wang and 3 other members of the WeChat group shared links to the same article on their respective news websites, news in quotes there, and again received thanks from the PRC official. In November 2021, prosecutors said Wang coordinated propaganda articles with a high-level member of PRC intelligence who had a direct line to Chinese President Xi Jinping. According to court documents, that official, John Chen of Chino, California, pled guilty and was sentenced to 20 months in federal prison for acting as an illegal agent of the PRC and conspiracy to bribe a public official. Sun, meanwhile, received a 4-year federal prison sentence after pleading guilty in October last year to acting as an illegal agent of a foreign government. Wang was expected to make her first court appearance this Monday. So, okay. So I have a question.
Yeah.
Because I'm very skeptical of things. Was this lady legitimately spying for China, or was this some sort of organized propaganda thing to make China look bad?
It could go either way. That's the world we're living in.
Yeah, especially in recent years, how a lot of us have become ultra skeptical of things being true or not. I have to say, this sounds like too easy of a slam dunk to point at China and say, "Oh, they're infiltrating our United States." I mean, it's possible. I have no doubt about that. Anything's possible like that. It just seems like in our current air of propaganda that we've been swimming in for some time, it sounds a little shady.
It could be either. I mean, it could be. I mean, look, countries spy on each other. They spy all the time on each other. So it could very well be that this is what was happening. It could also be that she is, shall we say, the fall lady who's being propped up by some covert, covert organization in the United States to make China look bad. This is where we're at.
Yeah,
we don't know. How do we know?
I would say probably about 6-7 years ago, I'd be like, "Oh, wow, that's crazy that China is able to do that." And nowadays I'm like, is China really doing this? That sort of thing, because like we said, we've been lied to so many times by our own government.
We just simply don't trust them.
We just don't trust them.
Anybody who's ever looked at stuff like MK Ultra.
Yeah.
And that people cite it as a conspiracy theory. It's been valid. It's been verified.
Yeah, it's been verified. And speaking of conspiracy theory, I don't know if you remember the Mel Gibson movie from several years ago, where it turned out that he was so paranoid about everything. And turns out he was right. I bet a lot of those people are looking at that movie as like a documentary these days. You know, like, wow, yeah, because there are people who predicted stuff and they're like, you're crazy, and you're like, and nowadays you're like, wow, they seem like Nostradamus at this point. So
I am working to get our guest in here, Uncle Warren. I'm going to quickly go on.
Okay, there he is.
We see him. We see him now. Thank you.
Okay. All right. We're going to get to you in just a second, Bill. We got a couple more stories and we'll get out of here. We'll get you in here. I mean, so let's move on here. Bill, if you can hear us, give us a thumbs up. Okay. Can you hear us? Okay. Everything fine?
You can hear us. Okay, great.
That's That's a beautiful thumb you got there, sir. I don't mean to be weird like that, but I like thumbs. Anyway, speaking of thumbs, Trump's redistricting push fizzles in South Carolina Senate, but wins in Missouri's top court. So I just wanted to go over these two, kind of get us like a little bit of what's going on with what's going on elsewhere around the world. I don't know where my story went. It's a
conspiracy. I think Chanda did it.
Oh, I think this is one of those just video things. That's fine. Which is fine. Because we can so it's going on. We can say at least that it's going on in South Carolina Senate. And we can also talk about what's going on in Alabama too, as is the Supreme Court there. As the Supreme Court clears the way for Alabama Republicans to pursue a new voting map as well. So the SCOTUS cleared the way on Monday for Alabama Republicans to pursue a congressional voting map more favorable to their party ahead of November's midterm elections. The latest fallout from the court's seismic voting rights ruling. The justices lifted a lower court's decision that had blocked state Republicans' preferred map as racially discriminatory and for illegally diluting the voting power of Black Alabamians. And this is what was similar that was going on in Louisiana too, as well. So a lot of these southern states are starting to feel this. And you know what? Let's go ahead and get to I can find the thing. There we go. Let's go ahead and get to the catch of the day here, and bring Bill in here. See.
Hey, Bill, good to see you.
Hi, how you doing? Is the audio okay on your end?
Yeah,
you sound great.
You sound better than me, and usually it's because when I'm talking, nobody wants to listen. So, but which is fine. It's good to have you back, Bill.
Greetings from the Hoosier Heartland. Before we get to the main course, if I may,
please,
I'd like to riff just a moment on two of your earlier items,
because
they speak to me in a very personal way. Beginning with Starlink. I also happen to be the secretary of the Wabash Valley Astronomical Society, and I'm feeling a little bit of schadenfreude regarding the Starlink story because we aren't fans. Starlink photobombs astrophotographers.
Okay.
This gets better. As Lainey well knows, I'm also into shortwave radio, and the existence of services like Starlink were part of the rationale for defunding terrestrial shortwave radio broadcasts. Oh, they have internet now and we can get it to them even when internet's bad and even when governments won't fund it. There are guys like Elon Musk out there to provide services. Well, turns out there's a catch. So let's say you're in Iran right now. Iran's regular internet is down, mostly. Not 100%, but mostly. So what you going to do?
Yeah.
The other item on our California mayor there, a dirty, not really a secret, but something we've sanitized about early American history, is that if you go into post-revolutionary Kentucky and its surroundings, at that point in time, a lot of what today are considered honored patriots were diddling around with Spain with a possible view towards separating from the Confederation and affiliating with Spain. There, again, they don't teach you that in grade school anymore because it's kind of counter to the narrative that they're all patriots. But if you go back and say, read the original documents and early 1800s histories, it's all there. Let's fast forward now. Remember who Spiro T. Agnew was?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's Nixon's VP.
Yeah, his career got even dirtier after office.
Oh, that's a shock.
Imagine that.
Yeah, boy, politicians get out of office, be more corrupt. Yeah.
He was advocating for, I'm going to give you 3 guesses on which government. You'll never guess.
Did it involve pandas?
No.
Did it involve I got nothing. Did it involve wearing funny little round hats on your head?
Not quite.
Okay. Are we close?
Who is Muammar Gaddafi?
So Libya's
He was working as an unregistered agent for Libya. But we kind of swept that under the rug too, because Republicans don't do that stuff, being good patriots and all.
And and the rest of us are nattering nabobs.
Right. Anyway, on to the Hoosier heartland now. Yes. I was a Chicagoan for 4.5 decades, but grew up where I now live and came back for family reasons. I went to Chicago in the mid-'70s, at which point in time, I was living in what was then the 2nd U.S. Congressional District for Indiana. I'm now in the 4th. Just redistricting does happen. It does happen naturally. But just to set the table on what the political environment was and is like, at the end of Nixon's term, my 2nd district U.S. representative was Earl Landgrebe, a Republican, who not only was the last holdout for Nixon, but the day before Nixon's resignation, when Landgrebe was asked about where he was going to go, he famously said, "My mind's made up. Don't confuse me with the facts."
Yeah.
He did lose a subsequent election in the anti-Nixon wave. Now let's fast forward, and we're going to talk about the state generally, but I want to start right in my geography because some of the most dramatic stuff happening in the state is happening right around here. Okay. I currently live in the 4th district, as you saw from your map, at the U.S. level. At the state level, which is where the redistricting fight got ugly in the state legislature, I am in State Senate District 22, which is held by Ron Alting, a Republican. But at the same time, I am in State House District 27, which has been held by a Democrat, my 3rd grade teacher, in fact, Sheila Clinker, since 1982. Why is it possible to do that at the same time? Well, the House District takes in mainly Lafayette, Indiana, and the immediate surroundings. The State Senate District goes out to Delphi and other rural areas. And there's a very significant urban versus rural divide. Lafayette itself has a Democratic mayor. If you go out into the small towns, it's red country. Alting, interestingly enough, our state senator, supported redistricting. And of course, is experiencing a lot of blowback now by people like yours truly. He nevertheless won his primary, so he'll be up against a Democrat. The really dramatic story is right across the river in State Senate District 23, where Deary and Copenhaver in the Republican primary are literally, as I speak, within 3 votes right now. And there's still 2 votes to be counted on Friday. Even if Copenhaver was the Trump-endorsed candidate because Deary, also a Republican, voted against redistricting. Now, doing that urban-rural divide again, Deary's main base is West Lafayette, Indiana, which is where Purdue is located. But the rest of his district goes out into Fountain County in a rural area, which is kind of mega country yet. And right now, Deary's ahead by 3 votes. Even if the 2 votes go against him, he still at the moment wins by 1. But what do you think the odds are that there isn't going to be a recount? It's going to happen no matter which one of them. Well, again, it will be called for Deary, but I don't see a recount not happening. Copenhagen is a real serious red meat MAGA. And to give you a feel for how ugly it got statewide, all but one of the other Republicans that voted against redistricting was successfully primaried by outside money, all of them. And not just a little money, a lot. If you go back to the 2024 election, it's always hard to get exact funds on any of this because there's always dark money around the edges. But rough expenditures in 2024 were about $500,000.
Okay.
Depending on how you count, in this primary season, it was between 12 and 13 millions dollars. So we're literally talking almost 24 times. And the majority of that was out-of-state money and mega money specifically. Act Blue wasn't posting up because that wasn't the primary of concern for them. And there weren't Republican for Sanity PACs either. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. During the very acrimonious debate where the House did the wrong thing and the Senate did the right one, there was a vague reference to the state constitution, but it never got the kind of play that it should have at that point in time. I'm going to read to you, if you'll bear with me, the actual wording of the Indiana Constitution as it is right now. And we're going into Article 4, Section 5 regarding the legislature. The General Assembly elected during the year in which a federal decennial census is taken, hold that phrase, shall fix by law the number of senators and representatives and apportion them among districts according to the number of inhabitants in each district as revealed by the federal decennial census. The territory in each district shall be contiguous. Now, as states go, Indiana is not North Carolina. We don't have these bizarre razors and snakes. But the proposed new map would have come down pretty hard on Senator Deering, and there would have been little octopus-like tendrils between his district and the one I'm living in. But the important phrase is the following. The General Assembly elected during the year in which a federal decennial census is taken. Now, our state senators have 4 years, but our state representatives only have 2, and therefore the General Assembly lasts for 2 years, which means that the last census having been taken in 2020, there needed to be one by 2022. And there was, in fact, one in late 2021, a little later than usual because the census numbers were out a little later than expected.
Right.
But one could argue that it's unconstitutional for this last General Assembly to have even taken on the task because they weren't elected as a body in the year that the census was taken. Hypothetically, if the redistricting proposal had passed in the state Senate, it all probably would have ended up in the court system here. And if for some reason the legislature takes another run at it before November, I rather anticipate that the Constitution will be pulled up a little more forcefully. To be honest with you, it baffles me why it wasn't brought more earnestly into play, but for the fact that we seem to be ignoring much of the Constitution at the national level. And if a president can go to war by passing Congress, I guess it's not a big surprise that a state legislature can try to redistrict by passing the state constitution.
Well, it just seems obvious that this is just a ploy because they know the Republicans know they're going to lose the House and Senate in November. It's almost a foregone conclusion. I mean, yes, anything can happen between now and then, but between the redistricting, and then you also have the new head of ICE who's talking about putting agents out at voting precincts. It seems like they're pulling out all the stops to do this. Like I said, they're doing this in other states too, Louisiana, Alabama, and other places too. Is there any recourse as to like what the people can do? Can they fight back, or is once the Supreme Court makes this ruling, is that it?
I'm going to have to parse your question a little bit to
please do, because I sure
correctly. Let's begin at the state level. Let's assume that a redistricting reattempt were to happen and happen successfully, which I doubt. I think in Indiana that's remote. If the Indiana State Supreme Court said it's okay, I think we would be stuck. And unfortunately, in the sense of what the courts do, that's true with the electorate as well. I'm going to put my political hat on at the moment. It's no secret that I've long to believe personally that the last best hope for having anything that even pretends to be a republic involves tearing up both major parties. They really have become like professional wrestling.
Yeah.
And they each have a pitch for her. Mm-hmm. But it's a little like light beer from Miller or Pepsi versus Coke.
Right.
You're still drinking swill.
Yeah.
But what's different now in 2026, I think, is we have a near enemy and we have a far enemy. Mm-hmm. Both of them are enemies. And I used to say, look, to hell with all that, vote independent of your choice because it's the only way out. But now we really do have a near enemy, and that's the GOP. And what converted me is the fact that state politics here has become nationalized. Mm-hmm. My state senator has nothing to do with whether we're in Iran or Venezuela or Cuba. But he's expect to toe the Trump line, whatever it is. And for that reason, the GOP has become the near enemy. In the longer run, we need to get rid of both of them. Mm-hmm. But at the moment, I would say anybody that's wearing that nasty red hat, regardless of how likable they are otherwise, if they're in lockstep, they are the near enemy. But the blue wave is not going to magically save the republic. If and when they predominate for a while, we'll have to go after them next.
Yes.
Oh.
Well, and it was the Democrats who served up Trump twice on a silver platter.
The Democrats made Trump. Let's call a spade here. Mm-hmm. The Democrats made Trump thinking he'd be easy to beat. Well,
yeah, and that did not happen. And
it's another example of Americans being unable to learn from history. In Germany, a lot of industrialists served up Hitler thinking he'd be easy to manipulate.
Wow, the parallels are kind of a little scary.
Parallels are a little disturbing, yeah. Now,
yeah, a little bit.
Trump has a lot of work to do before he turns up in Hitler's league. And in some respects, he's not very good at being bad, which I guess is a saving grace. But he's bad enough.
He's bad enough. Yeah, Uncle Warren, you asked the question I was going to say. Ask, okay, we have this situation. What can possibly be done? Yeah. Is there anybody in the GOP? I mean, and I know there's some people who've tried standing up, but has the dissenters within the GOP? I have not seen them be terribly effective.
At a local level, if I lived across the river, if I lived in Deary's district, I would actively work for him and vote for him, just to keep a dissenting voice in the GOP. But I'm in Altings. Altings supported redistricting. So honestly, I would vote for a toaster oven before I would vote for him. And following that strategy, we're almost guaranteed to get some people in office we aren't going to like. They'll be too liberal. They'll be too vegetarian. They'll be too something. No offense to vegetarians. I'm just saying somebody will have a reason not to like who comes next, but they're your next target.
Yeah, well, it's because these two parties they have a stranglehold on who is allowed to run for these offices, right? Like like you say, of course, a lot of people, 40% of the country considers themselves independents, right? Yet it takes a near biblical miracle to get them on the ballots in these states. And that's not just because of Republicans, it's because the Democrats are trying to keep these independents off the ballots because they're afraid of splitting the vote. And of course, that means splitting their money, because we both know that the DNC and the RNC are big fundraising machines and not necessarily political machines, because they both always out there. They're always causing trouble, saying, oh, he did that or she did that. Come on, you got to give us some money so we can fight back. I mean, yeah, it is. It's wrestling. It's a kayfabe, right?
Well, if somebody made me Solon, and Solon in ancient Greece had sort of a deal with the Athenian people. He would lay down some laws and he would leave Athens for 10 years, provided that there was an agreement not to change anything that he wrote. And consequently, if I had that power, I would do a few things. One of them is there would be mandatory physics education in the school system. I'm sorry, civics. Did I say physics? Civics.
Physics
we probably need physical as well.
Yeah, probably.
But civics, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I remember civics. I remember taking civics. It just disappeared from the schools, right?
It became social studies, and with it became a disinterest in the Constitution and what's in it and why it's there. I would actually be in favor of it being necessary to pass a Constitution test, enabled, maybe a little like driver's licenses. When you turn 18, you have to pass a test demonstrating a basic knowledge of the Constitution.
Now, Illinois has that, or at least when I grew up, Illinois had that rule, and you had to graduate from middle school, 8th grade, and you had to pass it in high school to graduate, and from university.
But that wouldn't help if I, say, moved in from, I'm talking about voting specifically.
Yeah, okay.
If I moved in from, say, Michigan or Wisconsin, that wouldn't,
that wouldn't do that, right?
Yeah, I'd say and that would have to be done at the state level, because ultimately the states determine
who gets to vote
and who doesn't.
Right.
And then renew it, say, every decade.
I would have no problem with that. I would have no problem with that at all. I have a number of things. Actually, I think that everybody should be required to take, for what it's worth, an emergent disaster preparation course as well. It's about being a good citizen. We're talking about civics here, and I don't want to go too far afield, but I think that coming back to the idea of civic responsibility is critical. But I also think that if people feel like their government does nothing for them but penalize them and tax them, they may not feel that they have any civic responsibility. And that, in my view, does rest with the government that says, okay, we're here for the benefit of the common good. And I think a lot of people aren't feeling that.
Yeah, that's a fair observation, I think.
Yeah, and also too, you have this kind of, I don't want to say misinformation, but just this misunderstanding about the parties themselves, right? That really, I mean, some people knew already, but a lot of people didn't know until some of Bernie Sanders surrogates took the DNC to court to find out that these political parties are private entities. These are not part of the government apparatus. These are just two private organizations that take part in the voting process, right? So when you hear people, well, my only choice is Democrat or Republican, it's very frustrating. It's like, no, you have other options, and they can choose whoever they want as their nominee. So is there a really democratic little d process within these parties? Of course not. It's all back rooms and cigars and whatnot. Yeah, of course there's voting. They count the tally and stuff like that. But, they can be manipulated. I don't think a lot of people understand that. And I think that education needs to be had too.
Yeah. If you go back to the very beginning of things, our founding fathers were actually frightened of what they called factions. They didn't use the word party. They used factions. And they tried everything they knew how to prevent them from emerging, and failed almost immediately, human nature being what it is. But it really would be better if we can't have 0 parties. It would be better to have 10 of them. It really would.
Yeah.
Would it be harder to get laws passed? Absolutely. But isn't that kind of the point?
Right.
Yeah. I think about what people don't understand about European countries that have parliamentary systems, and the idea of coalition building, which you have to do in many cases because you have multiple parties and sometimes you can't get everything through. So guess what? People have to sit down and talk, and they have to work on these things. I don't think that people in the U.S. understand what a prime minister is, or the fact that there are shadow cabinets. And I think some of this stuff could actually serve us very nicely. I'm not saying a complete overhaul of our system, but I think that we're not aware of that and how it works in other functioning nations.
Yeah, I'm not even sure. While our Constitution would probably benefit for some amendments, I don't think that would even matter that much until and unless we can restore respect for it, which we don't have at the moment.
We don't have. Yeah.
I was going to say, I think people in this country know more about prime memberships than they do about prime ministers, and that speaks in and of itself. So yeah, I guess is there any hope or is this just going to keep going? Do you think this is just going to happen in other states too between now and November? Or I mean, what do you think?
Well, Alabama has already reared its ugly head. Virginia's at risk.
Yeah.
Will any states jump up out of the middle of nowhere this late in the game? I think that's going to come down to the numbers. If the Republicans perceive that they're still on the losing end of the stick, they'll keep shaking the tree until something pops out. If they feel they have a margin, then things might settle down.
We'll see, I guess. You go ahead, Bill.
Not to be a downer, but I do a certain amount of book at bedtime stuff. And something I've done at bedtime over the last year is go back and reread some of the old masters like Montesquieu, Rousseau, just to see how it lands at my current age and experience compared to when I was in my 20s and still had a more idealistic view of the world. Technically, we're too big for any of this to work.
Yeah.
And we also have the wrong kind of economy. It's hard to take a people that's taking orders basically 8 to 10 hours a day. And if you're a corporate employee, that's probably what you're doing. And then have them step away from that and magically turn on their independent free thinker switch. Because you sort of get accustomed to authority.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the same manifest destiny that made us big also doomed our prospects toward being more democratic rather than less, small d. So am I optimistic? No, I think there are things we can do to mitigate. Our best days may be behind us on that score.
Yeah.
That's not to say we shouldn't try. We should. Because if we don't try, things could get considerably worse.
Yeah, we definitely have to keep holding the door to keep away the barbarians at the gates, I guess. Even though some of them's already gotten in, but
one last thought, and then I'll let you go. I know you've got a show to go there, but I went to see the new 1984 over the last weekend, and I was appalled at the new improved ending.
Oh boy.
George Orwell would have chuckled, written an essay.
They didn't.
Well, at the new ending, the animals rise up after all and get rid of the bad animals, and then they tell a story about once upon a time. Orwell left it dark for a reason. And I don't doubt that the filmmakers would say they had good intentions, they wanted to leave hope, blah, blah, blah. But in a way, this proves Orwell's point. Even history's not sacred.
Are you talking about 1984 or
I'm sorry, Animal Farm. Did I say 1984?
Yeah.
Animal Farm.
I know, but I know they had remade Animal Farm recently, and I was very afraid to watch that because of probably for the reason you just said.
I would not have a young person view that without also making sure they consume the book, even if you had to read it to them out loud. And as Lainey knows from experience, you get things from reading it out loud that just fly right by you if you're merely gazing at it.
I would say that Uncle Bill here and I worked on a shortwave project, Orwellian Airwaves, and I did some reading out loud of Orwell. And I have to say it was one of the most powerful experiences that I've had. Very disturbing, very disconcerting. And it's funny, it was this morning I was looking at possibly repurposing, or not necessarily repurposing, but kind of revisiting Orwellian themes in probably a side project here for the Undercurrent. So thank you again, Uncle Bill, for bringing that up, because that was quite an experience. If you'll recall, just what an amazing time that was, and to see what was there, it is concerning.
That, I guess, would be, I lied. I have one more. Since you asked me for recommendations, I have one more. If you haven't read these, read the following. 1984, obviously. Animal Farm, obviously. But also The Space Merchants. The Space Merchants is a science fiction book written in the 50s by Fred Pohl and Cyril Kornbluth with a K. It predicts a future world where there are governments on paper, but everything's actually run by mega corporations. And the most prestigious occupation in that world is advertising copywriter, which we would know as spin doctor in our modern life.
Right.
I'm recommending that one because you will see things in it that at first will make you laugh, but then you'll look around you and go, wait a minute.
Yeah, I feel the same way about Judge Dredd. It's the same thing. It's like corporate future, and the police are basically judge, jury, and executioner. And well, kind of seeing a little bit of that today too, as well. So it's funny how
Judge Dredd is great, but Space Merchants is like Judge Dredd on steroids.
Oh boy!
In fact, instead of commies, there are consies, conservationists, and they are the dangerous radicals.
What was the name of that book again? One more time.
The Space Merchants.
That's The Space Merchants
the
for
Space
you there,
Merchants,
Kate.
yeah. Never been made into a movie, although Idiocracy steals pieces of it.
Oh, Idiocracy. Yeah, I know there's another documentary we could talk about too.
Yeah,
At some point.
it steals pieces of it without due credit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know, right? Well, which is the American way. We like to steal things without credit here too. So it is apropos. What can we say? Well, Bill, we appreciate it. I mean, you're welcome to stick around for the rest of the show, but if you got to go, that's cool too. Just let us know what you want to do.
I can hang, but
please, love it.
Back to you.
Also, folks, if you check out our show notes, our Substack, we do have a link. Bill has a wonderful, does some wonderful music stuff, and you can check out that for links and information about Bill, but also about the topics that we're discussing today. And I'm going to share once again our link tree, which has links to everything that we do. And you can also find those show notes, a link to our show notes below the video, wherever you're watching.
Yeah, in fact, I'm doing Persian classical music on one of my shows this week.
Ooh.
Nice.
Uncle Bill, no, he knows music, world music. There's just so much delightful stuff that I've been exposed to. I remember I was listening to one of his Cuban music shows when I first met him, and I turned it on, and I am up and I am boogieing around my home office, just like, wow, this is delightful stuff. So if you're interested in learning more about music, do check out his website, because we do have it linked in the show notes.
It's hard to stay still with Cuban music. That's for sure. Even your old fuddy-duddy like me, who only does the robot whenever he does dancing, and that's usually after I've had a couple of cold ones. But
a couple.
Couple in quotes there. Well, if you're going to stick around, we're going to put you to work here with some commentary. Let's get to the recurring tide, where we look at stories we've been covering. And this to me, this goes as far as like surveillance is concerned, not government surveillance, but more like private surveillance, as Netflix has been sued for spying on children. That doesn't sound creepy at all. Asterisk, yes, it does. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton has sued Netflix, accusing the streaming company of illegally spying and collecting data from users and their children without their knowledge or consent. In a statement published on Monday, Paxton characterized Netflix as a, quote, logging company that records and monetizes customers' behavioral data and occasionally streams movies. The lawsuit filed in Collin County, Texas on Monday cited past promises by Netflix executives not to exploit users' personal data for advertising purposes. However, despite promising privacy, the company allegedly mined information spanning customers' viewing habits, preferences, devices, household networks, and application usage, according to the complaint. After building its customer base, Netflix allegedly began to sell user data to commercial data brokers, raking in billions of dollars annually. The lawsuit also focused on children's accounts, which Netflix encouraged customers to make. The complaint alleged that the company kept users addicted using features such as autoplay and other, quote, dark patterns, design features that push users into actions they may not have intended, such as staying on a platform longer than intended or agreeing to things they do not understand. The streaming giant has denied the allegations. The suit is based on inaccurate and distorted information, it told CBS News. Netflix has steadily declined in market value and share price since peaking last year. The company has also increasingly faced accusations of pandering and woke bias, including from public figures such as SpaceX CEO Musk. Well, take that with a grain of salt. Last October, the billionaire called for users to cancel Netflix for the health of your kids in response to an animated show aimed at children 7 or older, featuring a trans character, of course. So, our streaming services, are we scared of them now? Are they Big Brother too?
I remember when Netflix used to send you DVDs in the mail.
Yeah, no data collection there except your address.
Well, they knew what. Well, they were data collection. They knew what you were signing up for. When you request them, you set up a queue of the videos you wanted to. But I remember that that's what it was. They weren't actually monitoring your how much you were watching.
Right. Because they really couldn't. I mean, they could monitor what you were watching, but they didn't know how long you were doing it. And it definitely, there was no autoplay into something else.
The autoplay has always irritated me.
Yeah, I always turn that off. But yeah, it's when you and then when you start involving kids in it, though, that's when it gets like super bad too. And
what were you gonna say, Bill?
Netflix actually had a near-death experience, financially speaking, almost 20 years ago. I think it was like 2007. And this, of course, was before streaming was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the takeaway here is that even if it's nuked, it might still come back zombie-like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm pretty sure they're not the only ones doing it too. There's other streaming services out there besides Netflix. We just haven't heard whether they're actually, collecting this data or not. We can only assume. And in this environment, the assumption probably wouldn't be off base that far anyway, right?
Oh, there are some television sets now, if that's your viewing screen of choice, that are literally neo-Orwellian. I remember there being a Samsung model that came out a few years ago where, in a manner of speaking, the TV set watched you while you watched it. And for that matter, my Xfinity remote control, I can control by voice.
Right.
But that's going through a router. The information ferries, not hand walking that over to my device.
Right. Exactly.
And what goes into the router goes to the company.
Yeah. We want to protect kids, but we want to protect everybody else at the same time too, it seems like. And we could parlay this like streaming stuff into what's happening out on the streets now too here, with violence from police, ICE, the immigration officers. As kids are being harmed by tear gas, pepper spray under Trump, there could be long-term consequences. This is from ProPublica. So children were walking to school in Broadville, Illinois, or leaving a shopping center in Columbus, Ohio. They were at home in Minneapolis, sitting in a stroller in Chicago, or at an afternoon protest in Portland alongside dogs on leashes and older people pushing walkers. They were mostly going about their days when federal immigration agents shot tear gas or fired pepper spray near their homes and schools and into their family cars. The chemicals blew through the air, sometimes for blocks. They seeped into bedrooms, forcing an asthmatic teen to gasp for air. They stuck to the skin of a young girl who cried, "It burns." They caused an infant to stop breathing. ProPublica identified 79 children across the country who have been harmed by tear gas or pepper spray as immigration officers dramatically stepped up their use during Trump's immigration crackdown. Department of Homeland Security has repeatedly defended its use of the chemicals, asserting its agents aren't to blame. Really, they're just magically dispersing themselves. The fault, a spokesperson said, lies with agitators, which are probably more like agent provocateurs, in the crowds and parents who put their children in harm's way. But videos reveal the way agents use these weapons. One captures them releasing tear gas into a crowd with at least 7 kids just before someone yells, "There's children here." Another shows them hurling tear gas canisters at protesters without apparent provocation. Then, with the streets already flooded with white smoke, a CBP, Customs and Border Patrol agent, wears a body camera, shoots pepper balls before muttering "fuck yeah" and shouting "woo." A third shows what happened after an officer fired pepper spray through the driver's side window of a family's car, hitting a 1-year-old girl in the back seat. A bystander filmed in her tears, and her family later said she was struggling to breathe. The DHS spokesperson called the incident a disgusting pepper spray hoax, but a local pastor who was at the scene rebuked the claim, testifying at an Illinois State Accountability Commission that there's literally video evidence. And of course, there's video evidence. We've seen video evidence of what happened in Minnesota to the 2 people who got murdered there. I'll say murdered because it was. And we forget that a lot of times kids are in these neighborhoods that have nothing to do with stuff like this, but they're getting hurt too. What are we doing to protect these kids? It seems like absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I'm always concerned about people bringing their children to organized protests, but in some cases, these protests have sprung up because people perceive ISIS coming in and kidnapping their neighbors, and in some cases, people still have to function in neighborhoods. They still have to walk down the street. They're moving around. Kids go to school. Parents go to work. They're visiting. They're shopping. And I think that the ProPublica report here, which is something that ProPublica I think does a pretty good job with, is letting people know that there are consequences that go beyond the adults. That there are kids, and if you're considering a response, if you have to consider the impact on everybody in a setting. And maybe that has not been happening, or maybe they have done this and they're trying to use that as a deterrent. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm going to suggest that there's a collateral damage is not our fault mindset in the federal government generally, not just for what's happening here, but with the girls' school in Tehran, and with what were probably fishing boats in the Gulf and here as well. Not our fault that the kids are there. And how one deals with that absence of a sense of responsibility is a good question.
And it goes back to, in part, I think, to the question about civics. If people perceive that the government does not care about them and regards any damage to children, the vulnerable, people who have not been convicted of any crime as collateral damage, why should they feel a civic responsibility?
You aren't wrong, but I'm going to circle back, if I may, to where I live and part of the mindset. If we go out into MAGA country here, there's a perception that supporting the country equals supporting the government. And it's on a visceral, emotional, almost unconscious level. And reason may be futile.
Yeah.
In those cases.
Well, look at Gaza. Look at Gaza. The children there. They see their parents and families killed. And don't you think that those kids aren't going to grow up to try to avenge their families, right? And so you look here in the United States, these kids see the same thing, especially people that don't look like us and their children, and are extra worried that, people who are not white have to give their kids extra speeches about how to deal with society because of the way the government works and the way the society works now, so it's like, not only are you traumatizing these children at a young age, which is in and of itself is probably the worst thing you could probably do. That kid, if that kid survives, that kid's going to grow up to fight you. They're going to fight what caused that damage to them, that damage that was caused to their family too. And I don't think people like, the Trump administration or any administration that uses hardline tactics like that understand that until it actually happens, So it's I don't have kids myself, but I worry about the children in this world. I really do, especially because of who might be influencing them too. Because a lot of times, God love the parents that are trying to put food on the table, keep a roof over the head and stuff like that. And then they have to deal with this, extracurricular bullshit of having to deal with ICE of all people, or even just regular police that are militarized and are not acting like that friendly cop that was once talked about decades ago, So, well, let's move along here. We're going to get to something more fun. Tariffs. Who loves tariffs? More, please. No more. So steel tariffs are harming tin can makers and lifting food prices. See how that works? The cost to put food in cans remains high because manufacturers must still import steel from overseas. U.S. Steel plans to reopen a tin plate factory. Ooh. The simple tin can is proving to be one of the toughest tests for Trump's tariffs. Just over a year ago, Trump imposed high tariffs on steel to try to stifle imports of the metal and bolster domestic production. But imports of the kind of steel used to make cans surged in 2025, and American can makers say they will remain heavily dependent on foreign supplies, now made more expensive by the tariffs for a long time. We have to import all this tin plate, said Scott Breen, the president of Can Manufacturers Institute. Pretty sure he's a can-do kind of guy. Sorry for the rotten egg. Referring to the thinly rolled steel that is coated with tin and used to make cans. There's not any more being produced here than there was before. The Institute is a trade group representing some of the largest can makers in the United States. Unlike some of Trump's other tariffs, which have been overturned by courts, the steel levies have strong legal standing, according to scholars, which means they are unlikely to go away anytime soon. They were imposed under a national security provision called Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act, and at 50% are higher than many of Trump's other import taxes. A can makes up about a third of the wholesale price of canned fruits and vegetables. And as Trump's tariffs pushed up the cost of tin plate, canned food prices have risen and burdening households that rely on such staples as corn and beans. In March, canned fruits and vegetables cost 5.7% more than they did a year earlier, compared with a 2% increase for all food consumed at home, according to government data. Over 80% of the tin plate used in the United States last year was imported, according to Harbor Intelligence, a metals markets analyst firm. The tin plate is produced in much lower volumes than the steel used to make cars and buildings, making it a less attractive business for large steel companies. So yet another another dagger in the side for consumers. So are we going to get away from tin cans and move on to something else, or is this going to be fought? What do you guys think?
Well, I think, first of all, I think it's important to keep in mind that canned goods in particular really do serve the most needy among us. I mean, I have canned goods in my home as well, because as much as I don't mind making dried beans and soaking them and all that periodically, I don't have time for that, and I will buy canned beans, and I love them. But when you have people who need to get shelf-stable food, they may need to stock up because the prices are low. They need to be able to cook things quickly. If you've got a couple people, the adults in the household are all working, they may not have time to soak or prepare fresh vegetables, and they can oftentimes get good quality food in cans, which are shelf stable, regardless of whether the electricity is on or not. They have food, and they're going to bear a much higher burden here. Those folks are dealing with a much higher burden because they're going to have to pay more out of what little money they have for the one kind of food that is shelf stable and accessible and is easy to heat up and cook.
Yeah.
Here we are.
Pissing off the preppers too.
Well, there's a prepper. Yeah, absolutely. And when we talk about preppers, we're not just talking about folks who are looking, are concerned about the end of the world coming, or, the Ruskies are going to slay us all with nukes. We're also talking about folks who live in areas where there are wildfires, or rolling brownouts, or hurricanes, or earthquakes, or where they have tornadoes, people living in rural areas where it can be hard to get help. And yes, by default, they do stock up, simply because when something goes wrong, it takes longer for them to get help.
Yeah. And this is probably a bigger indication on the steel industry too. Even though this is like a lesser part of the steel industry, like they was talking about in the article, it's more towards cars and stuff like that. But, Bill, do you think this is going to be a big issue as this progresses?
It's hard for me to look at tin cans in isolation, but Yeah, that'll be one of many emerging problems. Another one is that guess who has most of the world's rare earths?
Let me guess. It rhymes with Dinah.
It's big. It's big. It has a lot of people, and it rhymes with Dinah.
Pooh Bear. Pooh Bear lives there too, right? In the
yeah, and in the very short run, our current POTUS, having used up about half of our arsenal in his latest adventure, used up a lot of stuff that needs rare metals.
Mm-hmm.
And the same country that he's trying to get to pressure Iran is the one that has the rare metals we need to buy to rearm. But not just for armaments, your phones, all your electronic devices, that's all. And we get back to no respect for the Constitution again. The Congress basically has tariff authority, trade authority, treaty authority, and it carved out an enabling act to arguably let, and I say arguably because a more responsible Congress would have called any president on the carpet for how tariffs have been used the last couple of years. Getting back to tin cans specifically, though, choices are difficult. Let's say we went to freezing and plastic. If we do plastic, then we've got microplastics. So we're trading a short-term benefit for long-term problem. When I was young, when we used the word canning, it very seldom involved tin, except maybe for the lids. Yeah.
The jars. Yeah. Ball jars.
Yeah, and in fact, the original ball jars were made a couple hours drive east of here, over by Muncie, Indiana.
Nice. Yeah,
and that arguably might be part of a mitigation. But the short answer is, will things get worse? Yeah, you betcha. But circling back to our political problem, farmers have been taking it in the shorts because of the recent trade deals too. These same farmers here are voting MAGA, even though they're voting against their own economic interests.
Yeah. It's sad. It's sad when you see that too. And these are smart people to make these farms work like that. You can't be stupid. So they're smart people. They're just, for some reason, they're ignoring what's going on. But if they
there's a blind spot. It's like Landgreaves, don't confuse me with the facts.
Exactly. I was going to say, without the phones, we could go back to the two cans with strings for our phones, but then now we can't even have the cans.
We can't even have the cans.
That's why we can't have nice things. Well, speaking of tariffs,
or nice strings.
Yeah, or nice strings. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's tariffs on string too. And tomatoes. Tomato prices up 22% on higher costs and tariffs. Yeah, so if you like tomatoes, yeah, you're screwed too. Prices in the United States have increased 22% year on year, according to the latest Consumer Price Index report, driven by higher fuel and fertilizer costs, a 17% tariff on tomatoes from Mexico, and adverse weather during the peak growing season in Florida and Mexico. At White or Wheat Sandwich Shop, manager Kyle Miranda said tomato costs have increased sharply in recent months. When they were $36 a case, they were about a cent a slice. They're all the way up to about 25 cents a slice. That's a lot. That's a lot for a slice. According to Miranda, tomato prices rose from $36 per case in January to $103 per case this week for a box of 50 tomatoes. He also noted that tomato sizes have become smaller, reducing slice yields per fruit. Yes, charge more, give you less. That's the American way. Despite the increase, the business has not removed tomatoes from its menu. I don't think we could. No, 90% of our sandwiches that go out of here have tomatoes on them. White or Wheat has changed suppliers and has so far avoided increasing sandwich prices, absorbing the additional costs instead. So at Deb's Produce, grower Deb Helt said production costs have also risen at farm level. Helt grows tomatoes near Utan. Said fuel costs have increased by more than $1 compared to last year, while fertilizer costs are up 80%. And that may have something to do with a lot of fertilizer coming out of the Strait of Hormuz, too. That might have something to do with it, too. Not just the tariffs. These big tractors use a lot of fuel, and then you got the pickups that you have to fill up. You got to plant the rye, you got to lay the plastic, you got to till it, you got to make a lot of trips over the field. Helt added that profitability remains a concern as growers manage rising operating expenses during the current production season, to which I say, start growing tomatoes if you haven't done it. Grow your own tomatoes. And hell, you may even make a profit.
And they taste better too. I've been doing that for decades.
Delicious. I love tomatoes.
I have to wonder with processed things like sandwiches. For a lot of food products, we've been experiencing what's called shrinkflation. Rather than raise the price, you make the product a little smaller. The hard part about doing that with the sandwich is the bread.
Yeah.
Oddly enough. And I wonder if somebody will eventually get around to a smaller diameter of bread slices in order to catch up with the ingredients.
Catch up. I see what you did there. Sorry. I don't know if that was vertent or inadvertent, but
yeah, busted. But you can only go so far with shrinking the ingredients before it gets a little visible.
Yeah. And we were talking earlier about small businesses, mom and pop businesses that have been having to deal with all these extra costs. And here's a prime example. A lot of small businesses are in the hospitality industry. And and you think about, again, also going back to some of the things about food and we're going to talk a little about SNAP in a bit, but tomatoes are pretty ubiquitous. It's not just ketchup, but you have pasta sauces. And you have a staple. A lot of people who are trying to stretch their food are eating pasta. They buy pasta, and you put a sauce on it, and it just can make ordinary ingredients taste a lot better. And so tomatoes are a flavoring. They're used in salads. I have Bush's, for what it's worth, has this wonderful line called Sidekicks, and they have these chickpeas, and with what they call, I think it's Mediterranean seasoning, but it has tomatoes, and that's us. Tomatoes you don't really see them, but they're tasting. They have the umami that contributes to that. So now we have this absolute staple, which is also pretty good for you. Lycopene and all that stuff is now becoming less and less affordable. And it's something that just gives people a lot of pleasure. And we know when you have a sandwich, it's the veggies, it's the pickles, it's the condiments that can really make that sandwich shine. And when you make it harder for people to get the ingredients that are going to make that sandwich shine, they're less likely to buy it, and they're less likely to take pleasure. And if going back to 1984, that was kind of the result. It was that pleasure was constantly being muted by Big Brother and the government to demoralize the people. And maybe I'm taking this a little far afield, but I don't think it's that much.
It's so easy to grow tomatoes too. I mean, you don't even have to have like a big plot or anything. You could get like one of those, big paint buckets things, right? Put dirt in there, put your plant. You can buy the plants yourselves from your local garden center, or you could get seeds if you're into that. But it's fairly easy to do, to grow tomatoes. And I think that's why people a lot of times grow tomatoes, because not just because they're so good in a lot of other different foods and in different forms, but a lot of times it's easier to grow. And like Bill pointed out, they're very tasty. They're homemade, because you know what that secret ingredient is? It's love. Delicious. But so if you can do it, grow your tomatoes. I mean, Bill, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just love. There's less stuff in homegrown. Nobody's trying to make the color just right.
Right.
So
as far as like climate, I don't necessarily think that you have to have you can do it artificially. You can have like if you were in a cold climate, you could, as long as you have access to the sunlight, you can grow these plants indoors. Like I said, you could do them in these like individual things like that, whatever, however much space. Hell, only maybe one plant, you get like 3 or 4 tomatoes off of it or something like that. So it's easy to do, and it's better than paying these outrageous prices just for it.
Yeah, and to the question about a relatively warm climate, only Chicagoans would consider Chicago a relatively warm climate. So
it is in the summer. It's in the
in August. In August, it can be, sure.
Yeah, it kicks in the summer. But yeah, you're right. But like when I was a kid, we had a fruit and vegetable garden, fairly big, about half as big as a football field, right? So and we grew everything, including tomatoes and peppers and stuff like that. And boy, we were very, like, we always had too much. So of course we gave to family and friends and neighbors and stuff like that. And everybody was like, "Oh, y'all growing them tomatoes? Y'all growing them tomatoes? Y'all got anything?" They're always like requesting the tomatoes because they were so good and they're nice and big. But now like shrinkflation, you get like the little ones, but the price doesn't shrinkflate. That price kind of does the opposite. So, but let's get into, we were talking about SNAP just a second ago. Let's get into that as the USDA finalizes stricter SNAP inventory rule. So what's this about? So the USDA published a final rule in the Federal Register on Friday that raises the minimum stocking standards for SNAP authorized retailers. This rule, which takes effect this fall, requires SNAP authorized retailers to carry 7 varieties of items across 4 categories of staple foods: protein, grains, dairy, and fruits and vegetables, doubling previous requirements. The USDA said in an announcement that it has cracked down on non-compliance with current stocking standards, noting it has taken action against 3,200 retailers since the Trump administration took office. The USDA said that the rule emphasizes more whole foods, increases the perishable food requirements, and eliminates loopholes that for too long have allowed retailers to count certain snack foods toward their staple food requirements. The Trump administration said the rule will require retailers to offer a wider selection of healthier food options that SNAP consumers can buy. The rule demands more from retailers and delivers better options for the families who depend on this program. This administration is committed to working across government to improve nutrition, strengthen accountability, and drive better health outcomes nationwide, said U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. USDA said it plans to provide additional guidance to retailers in the coming weeks. All right, let's talk about this. So, my body, my choice, right? What I put into my body. If you're buying from a store, what's the difference between buying soda pop and milk if you're buying from the same place, right? And it's like, you want it for yourself. What's wrong with that?
What I'm looking at, I'll just kind of back up a little here, Uncle Warren. This is, for me, this is less about the issue of individual choice on the part of the consumer. And it's about what outlets qualify to accept SNAP benefits, AKA food stamps. And so this is not about what a person can purchase with their food stamps. And we're already seeing those crackdowns. We've covered those crackdowns in some states. This is saying whether your establishment can accept food stamps. Right now, prior to this, you had to have, I think it was like 3 foods within each category. Now this has expanded, I think, to 7. And when you're talking about your major big box stores, your major supermarkets, that your grocery, your natural food markets, usually this is not going to be an issue because they're already going to have all of that. They're going to have, they're going to have far more than 4 or 7 or 3. options. What is happening though is that there are smaller stores that they're not even grocery store per se, but they might be, we might call them corner stores, bodegas. There are some liquor stores, sundry stores, convenience stores that can also accept these benefits. They have a different, they have different capacity. They have a lot less shelf space. They don't have the space in the refrigerated cases. They are dealing with a different group of people, but in some communities, that may be the only place where a person can buy food that they can walk to. And so that is my primary concern. I was recently watching a video where a woman who's a registered dietitian was reviewing the work of a woman who does Dollar Tree dinners. This woman goes to Dollar Tree and she comes up with creative ways to take food from Dollar Tree and make them into wholesome meals. And one of the things that she said is when you're dealing, this dietitian, the registered dietitian said, when we are looking at people who are facing significant poverty, the main goal is, or don't have food access, our main goal at that point is making sure they're getting enough to eat, aka enough calories. We're so used to thinking of calories as being bad. We don't realize that for many people, calories, getting enough calories to function is still important. But she said, and we don't worry so much about the nutritional composition of the food at that point. Do we want people to get healthy, whole foods? Absolutely. We want that. But there are still areas in this country where people cannot easily access full service grocery stores. And what could happen as a result of this policy is that some stores will just say, we can't afford to stock this range of foods. We don't have the shelf space. We don't have the refrigeration space. And at this point, we may not even have the product demand for these things. We're just going to have to drop accepting the benefits. And that cuts off a way to get food for those people living in that community or around that shop. Again, I am all about whole foods. I'm all about healthy eating less processed stuff, 100%. But I am in one situation here. There are other people who are in different situations, and we still haven't solved the food desert problem or the ability to access food as well as we could. And at this point, I see this again as one way of satisfying certain urges among the population who really don't like the fact that people are using their food stamps for foods that they don't approve of, at the risk of shutting down, in some cases, possibly neighborhood businesses, but also keeping people who can't get to the grocery store from getting the food they need to survive. And that's my sermon.
Yeah, they when I lived in New York, in areas where they had bodegas and the delis inside there, I noticed the hypocrisy in this, where it's like they're talking about like, oh, soda pops and stuff like that, but they won't let you have hot food, right? They don't want you to have hot food on there. Some of those, I'm not gonna shout them out because obviously I don't want them to get in trouble, but some of those delis that I went to, they were like, you know, if they knew you and, you know, you were cool or whatever, they would be like, or a lot of times not, they would just go ahead and say, you know what, you can put that hot food on your EBT because it's not going to show up in the system. It'll just show up as grocery, right? They'll just put it as grocery. Yes. Is it shady? Probably. I guess technically that's against the policy or the law or whatever, but they're providing hot food. And it just seems like some of these smaller places have taken it upon themselves to do that. And that may be why this crackdown is starting to happen.
Yeah, I agree 200% with everything that was said about the food desert problem. And until we factor transport into the mix, everything else we do is going to be not quite there. But there is, as Warren pointed out, a new opportunity for fraud. Is a funny thing when it comes to regulations and prohibition. You can never stamp it out. All you can do is move the goalposts. And in this case, the goalposts are going to move. I think back to the corner store across from where I lived on Sheridan Avenue in Chicago for about a decade, going back to the 80s and 90s. There is no way this guy could have stocked those tasty tomatoes we talked about and bananas without having them half of them spoil by the end of the week.
Right.
But if in order to stay in business, he needed to keep taking EBT, what's to stop him from relabeling?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Who's going to go back and audit that?
Yeah.
Especially given the current FDA budget, for example. Who's going to go audit that?
It would cost more to send out agents to try and investigate that than it would be actually to tackling whatever problem they seem to have with this. I mean, I don't have a problem with anybody eating hot food on EBT. I mean, I think that should be just a given right there, right? I mean, and it's also a benefit to these small stores that maybe don't have a lot of business, and maybe a lot of their business is EBT related, and it goes right back into the business. It's, it just seems like it's just like some sort of punishment.
It is
trying to get you to oh, what's wrong with you having SNAP? You should better yourself. You shouldn't be on it. That seems like that kind of mentality from the government when which is the hypocrisy is there's so much government welfare for themselves. It's not even funny. Let's get to something more just quite as disturbing as what's on your computer, as Google Chrome sneakily installed a 4 gigabyte AI file on your computer, but it's not exactly new. Here's what you need to know. Do either one of you guys use Google Chrome?
I do. Yeah, I do.
Unfortunately, I'm using it right now. There are other options, but I'm like, all right, screw it, whatever. So Google Chrome users online are rightly reacting negatively this week to the discovery that the application is apparently downloading a massive 4 gigabyte AI model in the background without their consent. So they did not initiate it. It was doing this on its own. The conversation was spurred by a new blog post from security researcher Alexander Hant, who writes as the privacy guy online. Hant penned a lengthy blog post that covers how Chrome does this and its potential legal and environmental implications. Chrome is installed on billions of devices, after all. While Hant's post is bringing broader awareness to Chrome's behavior, it's not new, and many users have likely already had the file downloaded without being aware of it. As noted by Mario Husalak on his Pure Info Tech blog, there are reports of the file that appeared online more than a year ago after users noticed that Chrome was suddenly taking up much more storage space. They verified the file, innocuously named weights.bin. There you go. So if you want to look on your hard drive for weights.bin, is present on the PC, though some Yahoo tech writers were also unable to find it on theirs, so it's unclear how widespread it is. That said, finding these sort of system files on a Mac or Windows machine increasingly requires toggling on several expert mode features. I would imagine so. So this this is on PC right here, and you can just kind of see how it's Chrome user data, this number, and then you get all this stuff here. So it's hidden. According to Hant, the file contains weights from the Gemini Nano model, which Chrome uses for things like the Help Me Write features, scam detection. Oh, that's that's ironic, and other AI features. The download is triggered, Hant says, when AI features are enabled, which they are by default for recent versions of the Chrome browser. So basically, don't turn on AI features on your Chrome browser. For Google's part, the company technically tells you it does this on its help page for how to turn it off, probably in tiny letters, probably in like, what is that fake language that never mind. Maybe it's like an Aramaic or something, dead, or Latin, some dead language. Chrome may download, quote, Chrome may download on-device generative AI models in the background. So features that rely on these on-device models stay ready for use, Google says. If you delete on device AI models, only features that rely on them will be unavailable. So basically they're saying read the fine print before you do anything with AI on your browser. But a lot of people aren't tech savvy. They just want to, you know, get online, watch YouTube, or maybe shop or something like that. They don't really know about this kind of tech stuff.
Yeah, okay. I'm a bit of a techno idiot, so I don't know if it's actually a concern, but I hope that this extra data doesn't make people's devices last less longer than usual. You know, recently I got into a situation. I recently had to upgrade my system, and just seeing the bloat that was taking over my old machine. Some of it was the processor, but some of it was just not having enough space for stuff. And I was like, where is all this stuff coming from? And 4 gigabytes, that's a lot.
Yeah, especially if you're not a really tech person and maybe you just have like the bare minimum of a hard drive space. The last thing you want is 4 gigabytes of just unusable crap on your system, right?
Indeed.
So Chuck here said, to uninstall the Gemini Nano file for number 1, open Chrome. 2, in the top right, select more, settings and system, and then 3, turn on device AI on or off. So I guess that's how you get rid of it. Do you use the Chrome browser? I'm not trying to dox you, Bill, but
yeah,
I'm just curious.
I use Chrome for some stuff. Yeah. And,
okay. But do you turn on AI on your Chrome browser?
I do everything I possibly can everywhere to keep AI off or turn it off as necessary. LinkedIn, for those of you who use that, had a default where it was going to vacuum up your information. And
LinkedIn.
I got warned about that and turned that off, but you had to turn it off because the default was to have it on.
Yeah. It wasn't Chrome, but in Windows they have this I can't remember what the name of the AI is for Windows. And I say, you know what, I'm gonna actually try this. I ended up deleting it off my computer, but I said, you know what, let's see what this is. So I said, how did Malcolm Jamal Warner died? I asked it that. This was like last year or something like that, year before, and he had already passed like a couple of years ago. And it said, oh well, he's not dead, he's still alive. I'm like, so it has all this. It's not only AI, it's a lot of dumb AI that they have on here too. And it's like a lot of times people might be getting misinformation from those things. So if you don't need it, really, I wouldn't turn that on. It's probably not a good idea. So
I've read some rather persuasive cases that over time, given what makes large language models what they are, that they will eventually get stupider because as they vacuum up more stuff, they aren't necessarily vacuuming up the best of the best. And eventually there will be a regression to the least common denominator rather than a majestic rise to the apex of human wisdom.
You want
kind of a mechanical version of the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Yes, indeed. You know, we're just not that smart as a species. I mean, I think that, you know, we are what we are, but I don't think we're terribly intelligent. And yeah, this is not necessarily the best thing. I will say this. This happened to me in Gmail. It's a very distressing event that happened. I guess I had this turned on by default. I, many years ago, had a very nasty falling out with somebody, a very painful, nasty falling out. And recently reconnected on good terms with this person, you know, and I'm not sure, kind of repairing things a bit. What was very disturbing was when I had entered their email address into Gmail because I was looking something up. All of a sudden, Gmail comes up with this AI synopsis of my entire relationship with this person. Ooh. And then describe the falling out in great and painful detail. I did not ask it to do this. And it was extremely disturbing and disruptive. I'll just leave it. Yeah.
Oh,
And that,
if you ever really want to ruin your afternoon, there's nothing like running yourself through a few search engines. I do that periodically, and it's very, very annoying what pops up.
Yeah. Recently, I had an AI model declare that I was married to somebody to whom I have never been married to in my life. That was fascinating.
Yeah. So I'm going to recommend yet another book because I'm always chock full of those. And this was another literally a century ahead of its time book. And this one is called The Machine Stops.
The Machine Stops?
The Machine Stops.
Okay.
And the author is E.M. Forster, Forster.
E.M. Forster, yes.
It was written in 1909. It's about a world that takes our present day-to-day to its logical extreme, except people forget how to care for the machines, and the machines begin to break down. And as they break down, people are no longer in a position to do much about it except watch. Interestingly, by that time, there is a set of social mores that if you are anti-machine, it's almost like being anti-socialist right now.
And he wrote Howard's End.
Yes,
fantastic,
also.
which I have read, and the movie, of course, was superb.
Well, this is a short book. It's actually more of a novella. It's under 50 pages in most editions. And even though it was in 1909, it could have been written yesterday.
Mm.
And some of it's already happened, and we unfortunately seem to be hurtling toward some of the rest of it.
All right.
Yeah, speaking of hurtling towards something, let's talk about the Iran war here. Hurtling towards oblivion, it seems like, as not just the war itself, but here at home, as costs are out of control. Trump's Iran war pushes U.S. inflation to highest level in 3 years. Well, and he's only been in office 2 years. So wait a minute. So how does that work? Federal data released Tuesday showed U.S. inflation rising to the highest level it's been since May 2023, as Trump's Iran war has led to increases in the cost of both energy and food. The latest consumer price index released by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics finds that prices in April posted a year-over-year increase of 3.8%, above economists' expectations of a 3.7% increase, driven by energy prices that surged nearly 18% from April 2025. And I saw somebody online say, well, it's only 0.1% higher than what was expected. But yeah, the expected number ain't exactly tiny either, all right? So the price of groceries also notched significant increases during the month. The report notes 5 of the 6 major grocery store food group indexes increased in April, said the report. The index for meats, poultry, fish, and eggs increased 1.3% over the month, as the index for beef rose 2.7%. The fruits and vegetables index increased 1.8% in April, and the non-alcoholic beverages index rose 1.1%. The index for dairy and related products increased 0.8% over the month, and the index for cereals and bakery products rose 0.1% in April. Economists said the new CPI report showed significant trouble ahead for American consumers, who last month registered record low sentiment in the University of Michigan surveys of consumers, driven in large part by anxiety over price increases caused by the Iran war. So the chief, Joseph Brusuelas, chief, I apologize if I butchered that name. I tend to do that on occasion. Chief economist at RSM told the Wall Street Journal that the American economy has entered a new chapter where inflation appears to have stepped up, and predicted that median American families are going to find it very challenging to adjust going into the second half of the year. Heather Long, chief economist at Naval Federal Credit Union, observed that the cost of living in April rose above average monthly wage gains. Well, that was a shock, meaning U.S. consumers are no longer just treading water, but are falling behind. Inflation is now eating up all wage gains for the first time in about 3 years, she wrote. This is painful for Americans and a true financial squeeze. So, of course, a lot of this having to do with the Strait of Hormuz being closed, and a lot of not just oil, but you have a lot of fertilizer that comes through there and other products that comes through there as well. And of course, these tariffs aren't doing anybody any favors either, but definitely the war has really bumped this up a notch as well. And it's not concluded either. This war is probably going to go on for a while.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And I also want to point out, we were talking about SNAP earlier. The amount of SNAP benefits that you get each month is set. So when prices go up and down, you're not necessarily getting more money, or you don't get discounts on the food strictly because you have SNAP benefits. You're paying what everybody else is paying with that set amount.
Mm-hmm.
So again, this sort of thing will fall harder on those who don't have a lot of money, and I just like to bring that up.
And you see a lot of market manipulation too with Trump when it comes to this war too, right? He'll say, yeah, we're on the verge of making a deal. And then you'll see oil prices drop. And then it'll say, we're going to go balls to the wall. We're going to blow everybody. We're going to destroy your humanity. We're going to destroy your everything. And then the thing goes up. And it's just like it seems like he's figured out the cheat code on how to manipulate the markets through this war, and particularly the Strait of Hormuz.
It's not just oil prices, but the Dow is behaving in manners that could be called counterintuitive. But one needs to remember when talking about the Dow specifically, that so much of it is traded, you guessed it, algorithmically. That he who controls the inputs to some degree, perhaps not controls, but influences the direction of the markets.
Yeah.
And really, if the Dow were behaving as a true barometer of economies right now, it would be down maybe in the high 30s rather than inching its way back up to 50. So you're not wrong about Trump and oil prices. You nailed that. But there's more going on in the background.
And more people need to know that too. That is because the oil gets the headlines, it gets the big splash, but there's the other stuff too.
Fun fact, for those who may doubt whether we're dancing on Israel's string for this, Susie Wiles, who is Trump's chief of staff, also on her resume has a period of consulting for, guess who?
The round hat people,
Netanyahu, back in 2020.
Yeah, those people. Okay, I'm gonna say, Bill, that is a fact, but it's not quite as fun as you made it out to be. So I think you should apologize for that. No, I'm just kidding. We have more war news for you because that's what you want, right? Giggity. Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, gets bipartisan grilling on rising costs of the Iran war and Trump's endgame. So they finally get in front of these people and say, hey, what's up with this? So Hegseth faced tough questions yesterday from Republican and Democratic lawmakers about the Trump administration's endgame for the Iran war. The conflict's rising $29 billion, I'm going to say $29 billion plus cost, because we don't know about the dark money. The black ops, as it were, and its impact on diminishing U.S. weapons stockpiles. While the Pentagon chief softened his tone from hearings before Congress nearly 2 weeks ago, notably avoiding the same pointed criticism of lawmakers, he got far more pushback from members of his own Republican Party about the levels of U.S. munitions used in the Iran war and Trump's intense criticism of traditional allies for not taking part in the conflict. Why can't you be as stupid as I am? Come on, Europe. Everybody all right?
Yeah, Ned just fell over.
Oh, okay.
So it's not ice banging your door down or anything like that?
Not yet.
Ned, sounds like Ned's doing some day drinking. I take issue with the characterization that munitions are depleted in a public forum, Hegseth said. That's not true. To which his haircut countered, yeah, it is true. Even as he insisted that the U.S. military has plenty of missile defense systems and other munitions for the Iran war or future conflicts. Hegseth told House and Senate lawmakers overseeing defense spending that the Trump administration is working to ramp up production of weapons because, yes, of course, because a lot of their donors are MIC and more money, please. So is this another one of those things where it's just a forever war and all our federal funding is going to go to these military contractors? Is that where we're at now?
Well, even if it did end tomorrow, some of our key weapon systems, the word depletion is kind. Some of them are down almost by half. Not all on the Iranian campaign's account. Some of it went into the pipeline for Ukraine. To rebuild those, though, you need, guess what?
Metals.
Metals, yeah.
Yeah, the rare earths. Yeah.
Yeah, who is owned by guess who we want to lean on Iran. What's wrong with that equation?
The delicate dance of geopolitics right there, right? Yeah. So yeah, and that was the thing, because Trump went in saying, oh, this is going to be over in a few days, and probably didn't think he was going to use up all his munitions, to which, because Iran did the right thing, right? They sent all their, quote unquote, junk missiles out that so that the United States could use up all their expensive interceptors and whatnot. And then they came in with the real stuff. And it's like,
in fairness to Neo-Caligula's stooges in the White House,
Neo-Caligula,
they actually tried to warn him that this wouldn't be so easy, but Netanyahu's government said, "Nah, it'll be over in days."
Yeah, it's that meme with the dog that's sitting in the burning house. He goes, "This is fine. This is fine." Yeah. And now look at us, and of course, to use a crude analogy. Iran has us by the short and curlies.
And to a lesser extent, China. The only reason that they aren't busting a move, well, there are two reasons they aren't busting a move on Taiwan right now. One of them is that PLA, the People's Liberation Doctrine, under its optimistic scenario, doesn't have them ready until 2027, which is a year off yet.
Yeah,
but also part of the way to getting there was purging PLA leadership, which she did a few months ago. Take that off the table, and probably what's happening this week is she's having a little talking to with Neo-Caligula about Taiwan specifically. But a lot of what we were using to protect Taiwan got redeployed to the Middle East.
Yeah.
So if I'm sitting in Taipei, I'm not feeling very comfortable right now.
Yeah. You could say the same thing about the South Koreans too. When they took, was it their THAADs and brought those over there? They're like, hey, wait. Oh no, we need those. Yeah. So
and the DPRK coincidentally just put something in their own constitution that if Kim Jong-un were to be assassinated, a nuclear response would be mandatory.
Oh.
And unlike us, a constitutional change in North Korea doesn't take a decade.
Isn't it funny how when you have a nuclear weapon, nobody messes with you? Isn't that funny how that works?
And that's going to be the long-term consequence, well, one of many long-term consequences of our Iran fiasco. The mullah that we offed, the Elder Khamenei, had actually issued a fatwa against nuclear weapons. And there's nothing stronger than a fatwa. His son, who's now in power, isn't necessarily, especially since we offed his father, isn't necessarily feeling bound by that. Now, this gets better or worse, depending on...
I was about to ask, Bill.
Okay. Oh, se pone difícil, they would say in Spanish. When North Korea got the bomb, the country that helped it with know-how and technology was Pakistan. Who's helping, in quotes, with the U.S. and Iran right now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So after, and Pakistan also sort of kept Osama bin Laden. I don't want to go down that because it would be good for another 3 hours. But Osama bin Laden lived there where nobody could find him for some
That's
years.
right. Yeah.
So if I'm in Tehran, I'm looking at North Korea and I'm going, we got bombed and they didn't. What do we learn from that equation?
That's right. And his son, Khomeini's son, is a lot more hardline.
Much
more hardline than his father. Yeah. So out of the frying pan into the fire.
More like the volcano, possibly.
Yeah, exactly. Going straight down to the core of the earth where it's nice and toasty.
Yeah, we don't even know how much actual damage has been done to Israel's military machine and civilian infrastructure because they are one of the few countries in the world that actually have an exceptional, as much as they like to advertise that they're a democracy, their censorship regime is one of the most efficient on the planet.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
So there are things that slip out implying there's more damage than they publicly admit to, but nobody has any idea how much.
Yeah, because when you try to report on that in that part of the country, oftentimes that's a wrap. So
yeah, and if you look at how much damage is leaking out to about American bases around the area, and bearing in mind we're using basically the same technology they are, what do you think the odds are that there isn't more damage than they're letting on?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Bill, how much time do you have with us? Can you stick around a little? We're almost done. We got like a few more stories. Can you stick around? Are we keeping you from a hot date?
I can stick around.
Okay. We're not keeping you from a hot date or anything, right? Okay, because
nah.
Lord knows, I'm a romantic cat myself, and love is love.
Yeah.
But all right, well then you can stick around with us. So we're gonna get to our press pool here and talk about some stuff in the press here, mostly with broadcasters here. Let's take a look here. As state broadcasters associations call on Congress to protect fans' access to live sports on broadcast TV. And as somebody who I don't really watch a whole hell of a lot of sports anymore like I used to. I still watch pro football because I'm part of the cult and I can't break out of it. So I'm hoping somebody has an intervention for me. But I noticed that used to, when you were as a kid, you could watch football, all the football games on your regular broadcast channel over the air on the antenna. Right now you got these streaming services involved, but we'll get all of that in a second. So the National Association of Broadcasters, the NAB, has applauded a resolution adopted by the 50 state broadcasters associations, along with the District of Columbia and the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, urging Congress to re-examine the Sports Broadcasting Act of 1961 to preserve broad fan access to sports programming as more games move behind streaming paywalls. When the law was enacted, policymakers could not have anticipated today's streaming options. This resolution reflects growing concern that sports programming is increasingly fragmented across exclusive digital platforms, forcing fans to purchase multiple subscriptions, maintain reliable broadband access, and navigate a maze of services just to follow their favorite teams. He calls on Congress to assess whether these evolving distribution practices are covered under the law, serve the public interest, and preserve broad fan access to sports programming. The following statement can be attributed to NAB President and CEO Curtis Leggett. Oh, okay. Leggett. Ooh, fancy. Across the country, broadcasters are standing with fans frustrated by the rising paywalls and growing confusion surrounding live sports. For generations, free over-the-air broadcast television has brought Americans together for the games that defined our communities and our culture. That access should not depend on a household's income, broadband connection, or ability to juggle multiple streaming subscriptions. The Sports Broadcasting Act was enacted nearly 7 decades ago to govern the relationship between major sports leagues and the nation's broadcast networks, which were and remain freely available to all Americans. More than 6 decades later, Congress should examine whether today's increasingly fragmented sports marketplace is still serving fans. We commend the State Broadcasters Association for their leadership and engagement in this important issue. Local television remains the only universally available video platform in America, delivering live sports, trusted local news, well, debatable, emergency information, and essential public service to every community. Policymakers should put fans first and ensure that the future of sports distribution preserves broad access through fair local broadcast television. And basically what's happening now is you're seeing a lot of these games. It's very different than it was 60 some years ago when you didn't have all this outside marketing for these sports teams, right? It was still in the 60s. It was still fairly a new thing. Football hadn't become baseball was like the big thing then. And then as the NFL grew and grew, but now you're starting to see, instead of just on over-the-air broadcasting, like on your TV, you're starting to see on Amazon. Netflix even does some games, and of course there's other cable channels that people don't get on air either. So I guess my question is this a sign of just the end of sporting, as far as like not sporting, but just the people's interest in sports, where it was so easy back in the day, and now it just seems like you have to have like 10 different platforms just to watch your favorite team?
I think from where I'm coming at with this, not a huge sports fan, but I would say, first of all, that a lot of times the facilities, the arenas or the stadiums or whatnot, oftentimes these teams are taking advantage of tax breaks, things like that in communities. And it's become increasingly hard in many cases for people to, first of all, get a ticket or be able to afford to go see a game. We were talking about that last week, Uncle Warren. We were talking about why I enjoy seeing minor league baseball. And it's become increasingly difficult for people to even go to the games live. And you make it even more difficult for people to be able to freely access the shows. Now, they used to have, I remember back in the day, they did have blackouts depending on whether the arena had sold a certain percentage, and that sort of thing was happening. But it absolutely does concern me that you have these teams that you are getting tax benefits, who are taking, who are making use of. If you've ever been to a game, a big major league or NFL game or whatnot, you have the police out there. They've got public transportation that are getting rerouted. I mean, there's a huge civic impact, and people can't even access the games over broadcast television or radio. That does really concern me. And I think this partly also goes back to the issue of civics. If people say, well, why should we support freely accessible broadcast television and radio? Why should we be doing this? Because we're not getting anything out of it. We're being starved for content, because that content is is branded and then being sold off to the highest bidder, which could be a private streaming service. How many streaming services do people subscribe to these days if they want to get the kind of programming that we were getting 50 years ago? So when I saw this, it really did concern me. I will say this: whatever you might say about the NAB, they really do advocate for free over-the-air media, whether it be broadcast television or radio, and they're pretty adamant about that. And this is just another example of what happens when communities lose that connection between their events. And again, we're talking about, look, you're a Bears fan, a Cubs fan, a Sox fan, wherever you have, or in here, the Arkansas Naturals or whatnot. there is a sense of community and civic pride that comes around, that forms around sports teams, even whether or not you're a huge sports fan or not. And when that becomes less and less accessible to the public, that's another institution or civic bond that I believe weakens.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I look at it like this. I remember when the advent of cable, right? When you had HBO, you could watch movies and programs on there with the potty mouth and the nudity and stuff that you couldn't do on your broadcast, right? It's like, okay, there's a market for that. People want the more adult oriented type of entertainment. But football, like sports, is not like that. It's not like it's something that has to be put on another streaming platform. It is done because it makes a poop ton of money. And that greed seems to be the name of the game when it comes to that kind of stuff. Bill, do you have a dog in this hunt? Are you a sports person, or do you think about the ramifications of these big sports teams and stuff and broadcasting?
I have a dog, but it barks a little differently. I'm going to have to parse it. In the television case, the fact that the video of all of this tends to get rolled under networks, even when it's over-the-air broadcast, takes a little bit of wind out of the sails of the local. Now, having been a Chicagoan, I have fond memories of WGN, but in a lot of the country, it's a big network affiliate. And I think the real battle is a bigger one on ownership percentages of these stations generally. Radio is a little more ominous. There has been a sort of war on AM radio generally. And if you're listening to a sports event on radio, it's going to be AM rather than FM almost all of the time.
Yeah, more often than not.
Yeah, and there was even a move by auto manufacturers to take AM stations out. Yeah, take AM stations.
I've been very involved in that, yeah.
Yeah, and there's been sort of a multi-front war to get rid of AM. And I view this as one more symptom of a larger disease. Take the sports piece out of AM, and you removed a huge chunk of what leaves it attractive to a lot of listeners. So now, having said all that, if I could get rid of the mandatory sports channels in my cable bundle, I would do it tomorrow. You know, give me some of my money back, and I don't want the Super Golf channel. You know?
Oh, come on, Super Golf channels.
And it's 19 cousins. You know, I would gladly pay less not to have that.
It was the old Bruce Springsteen song, 57 channels and nothing on. Yeah, but now it's like 500, 1,000 channels and nothing on.
Yeah, but what's left with AM has a similar problem in terms of, you know, and not only are they mega corporations, but they're mega corporations that are constantly in and out of bankruptcy.
Oh, yes. I have a lot to say on that, but I will not.
So the short form is I can't look at sports broadcasting without looking at it in that broader context. It's an important issue, but it's because it's part of the nutritious breakfast and the real arguments about the breakfast, if that makes any sense.
I caught that reference. I understand. Well, one of those channels is the Disney Channel, and Disney in particular is catching some heat from the FCC commissioner. Democratic FCC commissioner tells Disney it's the target of a censorship campaign.
We discussed this last week. The head of the FCC, who's a Republican, as we know, is now messing with the mouse. And has basically been, and we've been talking about this a lot, Uncle Warren, on shows, that is basically saying, you know, if broadcasters are not towing the line, they can be up for a premature or an early license renewal review.
Yeah.
And what we do have is Ana Gomez, who's Democrat. She has taken a pretty extraordinary step. We'll talk about that. I will say, just as in terms of clarification, I have interviewed her for a publication that I used to work for. I have met her in person. I was impressed by her significantly, and I just put that out there. And I was also very impressed by her team that I worked with to get that interview going. So just want to put that out there.
So Disney and ABC are the targets of a sustained, coordinated campaign of censorship control orchestrated by the Trump administration's FCC. The lone Democrat on the regulatory panel said Monday. In a remarkable letter to Disney CEO Josh D'Amaro, FCC Commissioner Ana M. Gomez decried the political weaponization of the federal media regulator under Chairman Brendan Carr, a Republican appointed by Trump. You are not the first target of this campaign, and you will not be the last, Gomez wrote in the letter, which she posted on her Twitter account. But Disney's experience is by now the most documented, and it is worth laying out plainly. Gomez, a telecommunications lawyer whom President Joe Biden appointed to a seat on the FCC, highlighted a series of FCC regulatory actions that she said were, quote, aimed at pressuring a free and independent press and all media into submission. She vowed to, quote, shine a light on what the FCC is doing to curtail press freedom. Disney and the FCC's Media Relations Office did not immediately respond to emailed requests for comment Monday. The Wall Street Journal first reported Gomez's letter. In the 4-page letter, Gomez said the Trump administration's crusade against Disney and ABC began in earnest after the broadcast network agreed to pay $15 million to settle a defamation lawsuit Trump brought before he was reelected to the White House. The settlement did not buy you peace, Gomez told D'Amaro. It only bought you time. Hell of a quote. Gomez laid out the ways she believes the FCC then pursued Disney's business holdings on multiple fronts, including a decision under Carr to revive a complaint about ABC's moderation of a 2024 election debate between Trump and former Vice President Kamala Harris. I suspect there will be no end in sight for that investigation, said Gomez, who has been on the 3-person panel since September 2023. The third commissioner is Olivia Trusty, that's a nice name, whom Trump appointed. Gomez ticked through other FCC moves focused on Disney, including an investigation into its diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI practices launched last year, an investigation into whether The View violated equal time rules for political candidates, and an early review of ABC's broadcast licenses in the 8 markets where it owns stations. And just a reminder, Disney owns ABC, just so you know. The FCC announced the license review a day after the White House called on ABC to fire late-night host Jimmy Kimmel over a joke he had made about First Lady Melania Trump. First Amendment advocates say they believe the FCC was punishing ABC for Kimmel's comments. Carr said the review grew out of the agency's probe into Disney's DEI policies. The FCC is also investigating DEI practices at Comcast, the parent company of NBC News. That's where this is coming from. And reviewing a so-called news distortion complaint at CBS News over a 60 Minutes interview with Harris that aired before the 2024 election. Comcast and CBS have said they would cooperate with the probes. So she's calling out this guy, Carr, at the FCC for basically playing politics because of Trumpy's hurt little feelings. His fifis got hurt. Yeah, so I don't think she's wrong on that. And there's going to be more of that too, whether you like these big corporations or not, coming after them for these censorship, like petty reasons. I mean, that's in Trump's wheelhouse, but I mean, how far is this going to go?
One thing I do want to point out to folks is that the FCC actually has 5 commissioner seats. 2 of them are currently vacant. And this has been an issue with the FCC for some time now, only for a brief period of time under I think it was Biden. They finally had enough. The seats were filled, and they were able to actually vote on things and get some work done. But right now, there's only 3 commissioners and 2 vacant seats. So it kind of leaves things, they can't necessarily get a whole lot done without having more people there. And for a while, it was 4 people. So it was 2 Republicans against 2 Democrats. And for a little while there, it was just Ana Gomez and Chairman Carr huffing and puffing at each other. So this is not exactly the most, shall we say, efficient commission and this sort of thing. It shows how these regulatory commissions, which are supposed to be kind of government by expert, can be very politicized and can really make things very painful for getting anything done. But I also just want to point out, I think it's extraordinary that Commissioner Gomez has laid all this out at this point, and this is a real concern. The whole, and when Carr said we can do this the easy way or the hard way, I mean, that's mafioso language, and that he knew exactly what he was saying.
Yeah, literally. I mean, yeah, that's like, hey, that's a nice network you got there. Sure would be a shame if something happened to it. Yeah, you know what I'm saying there? Bill, you have any thoughts on this?
Unfortunately, I think this writ large may get settled out of court the wrong way. A lot of Trump's cronies are buying up network and network affiliated properties. And even if Carr backs off, which is certainly something we hope would happen, at some point, somebody's going to do that Michael Corleone offer to buy out, at least maybe not to buy Disney, but to buy out ABC.
Yeah, and we see what happens with CBS.
Yeah. CBS and HBO is about to make a hard right to the extent that it can. Its new ownership is Trumpy.
Yeah.
And there's more of that coming. It's happening in print media too. The current owner of the Washington Post has dramatically transformed the paper, and not for the better.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's didn't he didn't he have like the CIA funding too at the Post too, or is that am I thinking of another paper or something like that?
Well, it was way back in the day with Operation Mockingbird. But the Post is still Bezos, I believe, right?
Yeah. And there is I have to find the exact title, even though I read it. But even though Trump and Modi are no longer best buds, some of what the Trump administration has done by way of strategy was cribbed from Modi's rise to power in India. And I would have to run downstairs to get the book. I'm blanking on the title. It's something I read a couple of years ago, and it was just fascinating, the parallels. But in the case of the media specifically, there's this Italian fellow, Berlusconi, who was accused of coming as close to fascism as Italy might permit, who is a media magnate. And we're going to see that play out in media purchases, which brings me back to, but it won't happen under this FCC or this Congress. Too big to fail is too big to exist, especially in media.
Yep, that's true. And folks, for more Godfather references, you can always come to the Undercurrent. We're good for that. And now for something completely different, as Python had once said. Finally, let's get some. We always end the show with something fun, or at least something interesting that's not, something that doesn't make you want to pull your hair out. And today we have something fun here. This is if you're into like weird lights in the sky, and you're Canadian, of course, that's always a good combo. So this is for our buddy Kate. I think this is around her neck of the woods. Mystery shape floats across British Columbia night sky. So it's this thing I'm playing. Okay, let's see. There's no really audio to it, but look at this thing. This is just wild. It looks like, you got this little it looks like those, those little I can't remember the name, the balsa wood airplanes that you could get, you put
Oh,
together with the
yeah.
rubber, and it had like I'm sitting there pointing at the screen like you can see it. Like you got the little your propeller up here, I'm pretty sure rubber bands around here. So anyway, Lord knows we need aliens to come down here and save us from ourselves. British Columbia residents are trying to solve the mystery of an unidentified shape seen floating across the night sky over the province. I think it was Chuck on a pizza run. Sightings of the shape were reported ranging hundreds of miles across central and northern British Columbia between 10 and 11 p.m. locally. Patsy Seymour, who posted a video of the unidentified object to social media, said it glowed brightly but appeared to dim as it moved away from her location. Experts have yet to weigh in on the identity of the shape, but some of her observers theorize it could be a runaway weather balloon. It's always the weather balloon, isn't it? And I don't know. I guess I put this in here, and we got you here, Bill. We don't necessarily have to talk about aliens, but let's talk about what's been going on with the government as far as like this UFO disclosure. A lot of people say this is just a distraction from the war, from what's really going on. I mean, what do you think? All this, like the orbs and stuff that the government or the military is putting out these videos. Do you think this is all like legit stuff, or is this just like some sort of smoke screen? What do you think?
Well, in terms of the timing of the Pentagon's latest release, that was a shiny object at an attempt to distract from other things. And it didn't work as well as they hoped, I think.
Yeah.
Since I am with the Wabash Valley Astronomical Society, we looked and laughed at some of those things. But there's kind of, I'm not an aliens or among us kind of guy. That would take an hour to explain why. But
yeah.
The short answer would be, even if some of them heard what we were transmitting, the answers wouldn't be back yet. But in the larger scheme of things, there's kind of a before after on what are these things. If you go back to the 60s, your options on what they might be is usually photographic artifacts.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the age of drones that come in all sizes and shapes, and you can attach just about anything to the suckers.
Mm-hmm.
AI video too. AI video is making that muddy in the waters too.
That also, yes. Mm-hmm. And AI is even infiltrating legitimate astrophotography. A physicist once put up a slice of chorizo and claimed it was from a red dwarf in order to illustrate the problem of distinguishing true from fake.
Hey, don't knock red dwarf chorizo, okay? It's fantastic. It has a great texture, delicious spice.
Very tasty, yes.
But
the point was, fakes are easy, even with low tech, and if you throw in AI, it gets worse. So it could be that, but it could also be if there are military application drones being tested. Again, they can come in all. There is some of them that are as large as small airplanes.
Yeah,
and you can make them in just about any shape.
Right. Yeah.
What I don't think is that the planet Stinky Pinky is hovering over British Columbia looking for people to kidnap.
Yeah, I'm saying, and if you are, come to Chicago, right here. I'll open a I'll go outside for you, make it easy. Because at this point, I'm like, I don't know, I may want to ride off this rock, the way things are going. But yeah, it's that's the thing. It's like they know people have an interest, have had interest in UFOs and now UAPs for quite some time, but I think they underestimate the short attention span of people, right? So yeah, they'll see this, but then they'll go back to what's going on in the real world. It's like, what's going on with Iran, or what's going on in Israel, or we're going on wherever in South America. They're paying attention to that kind of stuff. It's just kind of like, it seems like the distractions aren't working that well anymore.
In terms of things that are totally off the wall, that's absolutely true. There is a little validity I'm putting my political scientist hat back on. There is a little bit of validity in the flood the zone strategy in the sense that people like me are paying attention to local races to a degree that we'd rather be partially invested in what's happening in Washington. And we're being bogged down. I mean, I may end up doing I'm not going to run for office, but I may end up involved in some local campaigns here that I would rather, I'd rather invest that energy in Washington.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
And I no longer have that option. So that part of the strategy, unfortunately for all of us, has a certain degree of effectiveness.
Yeah. Lainey, were you going to say something earlier? I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was actually going to make reference. Spirit of the Age on Rumbly Tumblies, which I don't think we can comment there directly. Mentioned that Red Dwarf was a great Britwit show, one of my favorite actually British comedy shows ever. And I responded in some of our channels, "I'm going to eat you, little fishy," which anybody who knows Red Dwarf knows what I'm referring to. So
yeah, I loved that show myself. It was
great. It's awesome.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, now you got me jonesing for chorizo. Thanks, Bill. You know, it's lunch.
Here's a secret. If you can find the real Portuguese variety, it's even better than the Spanish, although the Spanish is wonderful.
Yeah. It's because of the difficult language, right?
I learned this in Toronto.
And Portuguese tinned fish. I mean, Uncle Bill turned me on to the Portuguese tinned fish, which is with some Portuguese wines, and Portuguese wines are values and absolutely delicious. But yeah, very much so.
Well, we've come to the end of another exciting episode here of The Undercurrent. Bill, we appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much for hanging out too. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
anytime.
Do you have anything you want to shout out? Anything you got coming up that you want to let people know about?
Not on this end. I just want to salute you for the interesting topics you brought up today.
We do our best, sir.
We appreciate it. We appreciate this. Yeah.
Just a quick programming note for people on my end. I'm taking a small break from my shows on Friday until June 5th. So that's just I think it's a couple of weeks, something like that, maybe 2-3 weeks, doing maintenance and personal and technical maintenance, as it were, on my little neck of the woods here, and be back then. But we're going to be back next week with this show on The Undercurrent, and we're going to have, and I want to make sure I got his name right. I think it's it's Alex. I was almost called him Eric. So Alex Suarez is going to be on the show next week. He's a leftist activist. He's also an educator and a historian on South America, talking about that. I know, Bill, last time you were on, we were talking about Venezuela in particular, I believe. So he's going to be talking about South America. Maybe we can coax him into talking a little bit of Cuba in there too. He's been on Jamar Jabari's show numerous times. In fact, I think they co-hosted a show together. Very, very, very smart guy, just like Bill here. We like having smart people on here because we want to learn. And, we want to get the right people on here to educate us about that. So that's going to be next week. He'll be on with us. Same bat time, same bat channel, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific time on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, and Substack. Any final thoughts, you guys, before we get out of here?
I think that conversations like this, they used to have them in media. And we're able to do it here on The Undercurrent. And I'm grateful for folks like Bill and for yourself, Uncle Warren, for being willing to participate in this. I think it's important.
Yeah. And I appreciate all the our people that are in the chats.
Absolutely.
If you're watching this live or if you're watching this in the future, we appreciate all of y'all for your support. We do have, as we said at the top of the show, we do have mutual aid links down below in the description. If you can help our friends out, we appreciate it. If you're broke as a joke, like most of us, I understand. If you can share out the links, that's free. you can help out that way too. Any final thoughts before we get out of here, Bill?
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
You say that now. Lainey, you got any final thoughts before we go?
I think I said it all. If you can help out, mutual aid links in particular, Yoninah, she's in a bit of a bind right now, she and her cat. If you can help out, that's great. Also, we are trying to get up to 100 subscribers to our YouTube channel. I've put out the link tree, and you can connect over there, as well as our other social media profiles. When you do that, it helps us out. We can eventually get to live streaming on those platforms as well. Thank you.
Yeah, and we'll also have out tomorrow clips from this show like we've been doing. We've been getting a lot of good response to those clips too as well. So if you can't sit here for 2 hours and 45 minutes, you can sit there for a minute and watch the clips too. So either or, we got you covered. I love conversations like this too. I know this is probably one of our more extended shows, but that's fine. Everybody had the time to do it.
Yeah, the time to do it.
That's always good when you can do that. So when you get the family back together. Bill, we do appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And it goes without saying, of course, you're always welcome back. Especially if you got nothing better.
Just hit us up, let us know.
Yeah, if you have nothing better to do.
We've always got a seat for you here. So whenever you want to let me know, just we'll give you a link and pop on in.
Like, man, I got nothing better to do today. I could be watching paint dry, but you know what? I'm going to go on the Undercurrent. All right, guys. Well, thanks everybody. We appreciate you. We'll see you when we see you. Take care of yourselves. Peace out, everybody.
Bye-bye.